A world sharply divided by class, between those with magical abilities and those without. In this world, a lovely girl lives a peaceful life with her father in a remote countryside. As she grows up, she gradually awakens memories of her past life, accepting her fate as an ordinary person and desiring a tranquil life with her father. However, when a crisis strikes, she discovers that her father is actually a duke concealing his identity, and he is also the strongest swordsman. Follow this captivating journey as the father and daughter duo stage a rebellion, overthrowing the king's tyrannical and discriminatory rule. The story begins with the image of a beautiful baby girl with silvery white hair and ocean-colored eyes. The child is lying in a comfortable cradle, waving her hands at the man in front of her. Gently lifting the child into his arms, the man with hair the exact same color, as the child thought to himself that she was a little angel. He was Enoch Rubinstein. That was his first thought upon seeing the child who looked just like him. The child seemed very close to him, and appeared comfortable being held in Rubinstein's arms. The man was completely bewildered by the child's adorable appearance. He wondered, could she possibly recognize me as her father? It was an irresistible pull, a sacred blood bond. Perhaps it was also love. As his finger was grasped by the child's tiny hand, Rubinstein felt a warmth more genuine than ever before. A faint smile flickered across his icy face, and his gaze towards the child softened. Why? Enoch couldn't understand why he felt this way. Like other ability users in the Empire, this child was born purely out of the obligation to continue the family line, like a horse bred for mating. He thought he wouldn't feel anything. That there wouldn't be any emotional fluctuations. This creature should have been nothing more than a small thing sharing his bloodline. A child destined to grow up and become an ability user, a noble. And eventually, a soldier, a hound of the royal family. Thinking about his own experiences and the fate of children in this world, Enoch's face darkened. A fear washed over him, forcing him to make a momentous decision. No, I can't let her live like me. Enoch leaned down and touched his daughter's soft, small face. Then, that night, as the dark night became the perfect cover for secret actions, a figure in a mysterious black cloak left the base amidst the ruined, smoke-filled battlefield. Holding the child tightly in his arms, Enoch murmured to his daughter, "You know, I can't let you live this blood-soaked battlefield life, my daughter." So he decided to escape this place with her, knowing that the distant future would be full of difficulties in concealing their identities. Just then, another figure appeared behind him. A familiar voice startled Enoch, "Are you running away? And with the child?" The woman who had just appeared and asked the question was Selena. She was 20 years old and the child's mother. Selena sternly asked Enoch, "What are you thinking?" Enoch remained silent for a long moment, then hugged his daughter tighter than ever. He replied in a soft voice, saying that he didn't want to raise her the way he had been raised. Selena wasn't surprised by this answer. She sighed and said, "She's my child too." Yes, this was their biological child, but her birth was more like the fulfillment of an obligation than the crystallization of some vague love. After a moment of contemplation, Enoch suddenly suggested, "Then let's leave together." This proposal startled Selena. She seemed unable to believe that these words were uttered by the man before her. A moment later, Selena gave a sarcastic, bitter laugh. "Ha ha, I didn't expect you to be so reckless. We are born, destined to die," she said, stepping closer to Enoch and his child. As an ability user and a noble of the Empire, this child is no exception. Looking at the beautiful face before him, Enoch was momentarily at a loss for words. Because what she said was the cruel truth. Meanwhile, Selena's voice continued, "Even so, I understand how you feel. Having a daughter really makes us think differently." Thinking that Selena had come to stop him, Enoch gritted his teeth, determined not to give up. But Selena's next words shocked him. She turned away and said, "Go." He stared at her back in astonishment, not expecting Selena to compromise and let them leave. A myriad of emotions in Enoch's heart turned into one last sentence before saying goodbye. I plan to head to Xenon, but I'm not sure if we'll stay there permanently. From a barely perceptible angle, a gentle, sad expression appeared on Selena's icy face. She whispered, "All right, good luck." And so, on that day, the Empire's only swordsman, Enoch Rubinstein, completely disappeared. That was the story from 7 years ago. 7 years later, time had easily erased everything and caused the name Enoch Rubinstein to gradually sink into oblivion. In a small, pretty house in a peaceful countryside, a man with jet black hair entered the room and gently called, "Good morning, my princess. It's time to wake up." A pretty little girl with silvery white hair lying in bed raised her hand to rub her eyes and whined, "5 more minutes." Her coquettish appearance was incredibly adorable, but she was eventually woken up by her father. "You have to wake up, it's time to brush your teeth and have breakfast." The one wearing a cute Jetafruit patterned apron, holding kitchen utensils in his hands, was James Brown, the super domestic dad. Carrying the still sleepy child in his arms, the little girl insisted that she wasn't hungry, but Brown smiled and coaxed, "Come on, I made your favorite scrambled eggs. Extra delicious, just for you." Hearing that, the sleepy girl took a deep breath to smell the aroma wafting from the small kitchen. Then she immediately changed her attitude and shook her head. "Not just chicken and eggs, I also smell broccoli." Brown was taken aback that her nose was so sharp. "Ah, I said I don't like broccoli." "I can't believe it." Faced with his daughter's sulking, James had to continue coaxing, "My princess, Lilith, just 2 pieces of broccoli today, okay? If you eat it, your afternoon snack will be chocolate and apple jam macarons." Thinking about the delicious macarons her father made, Lilith's mouth watered as she wondered, "Are you trying to bribe me with chocolate and apple jam macarons? Do you think I'll fall for that?" She angrily retorted, but eventually succumbed to her craving. "Okay, just 2 pieces of broccoli." Observing his daughter's rapidly changing expressions, James couldn't help but feel speechless. All right, so she's the type to fall for this kind of trap. Being carried by her father, Lilith thought to herself, "What's 2 pieces of broccoli?" Then, her gentle father placed a good morning kiss on her soft, white cheek. "Who's Daddy's sweet little angel?" The girl's name was Lilith Brown. She was 7 years old and a child with a rather special secret. As she grew up, she gradually remembered memories of her past life. Currently, Lilith was enjoying peaceful and happy days with her father. James was a very good father and a great cook. 7-year-old Lilith Brown began to recall her past life memories around the age of 3, and now, at 7, she remembered everything completely. Everything felt like a surreal and strangely realistic dream, including the fact that this world belonged to a fantasy novel she had read in her previous life. In her past life, she wasn't. Right, she was a graduate student. Why wouldn't a graduate student be human? To be honest, that life wasn't suitable for humans. So, at the blooming age of 25, Lilith died from overwork, staying up all night writing her thesis. Her thesis title was, "A Study of the Nature of Social Reform Employed in Speculative Fiction and Fantasy Novels, the DOS Rebellion." She had been so stressed about that thesis that she was even reborn into the world of the novel. Before all her past life memories returned, Lilith was no different from an ordinary child. Even now, after remembering everything, her previous life remained blurry unless she deliberately tried to recall it. Subconsciously, Lilith found herself completely integrated into her current life. So, even though she could think like an adult, her childish dislike for broccoli remained unchanged. While she was still grumpy about the 2 pieces of broccoli, James brushed her hair and asked, "What hairstyle do you want today? Bunny ears or princess style?" Lilith sighed, "Dad, should I tie my hair myself?" "A ponytail will do." After styling her hair, James put his hand on her shoulder and said softly, "All right, princess. I need to go to the market today, so please go play at the neighbor's house. I'll tell Miss Susan." Hearing this, Lilith asked, "Why? Can't I go with you?" James shook his head and stood up. Not for now. There are scary soldiers wandering around out there recently. Hearing his explanation, Lilith became even more curious because such things had nothing to do with a child like her, a child who didn't have any abilities, not even a tiny bit like manipulating shards of glass. But faced with her reasoning, James remained firm. Still not safe. It's dangerous. In fact, with her past life memories, Lilith understood clearly. The scary soldiers her father mentioned were elite soldiers from the Imperial Royal Army. They had come to this rural area, hundreds of miles from the capital, to search for ability users. In the world of the DOS Rebellion, where Lilith was reborn, people were divided into two groups, those who could use magic, also known as ability users, and those who couldn't, known as the powerless. Ability users could live with the title of nobility and receive preferential treatment. However, this world also had a hierarchical pyramid where individuals were discriminated against based on their abilities. Wars occurred frequently, and ability users were often sent to places of conflict. In this story, even the main characters were brutally killed. Ordinary people, or the powerless, couldn't even become supporting characters in this novel. Lilith concluded that she and her father were such people. Ordinary brown hair and eyes. Even the name was very common, James Brown. Clearly, he was an ordinary, superfluous passerby character. While eating her broccoli, Lilith suddenly said, "But I quite like it. Being born ordinary is a great blessing, isn't it?" Hearing her words, James became confused. He asked her, "What do you mean, honey?" Lilith just smiled brightly and replied, "This world is scary. I like living a simple and happy life with you, just the two of us. I'm happy." Her thoughts made James fall silent for a moment. After a while, he reached out and ruffled her hair, smiling. "Yes, as long as I have my princess, I'm happy too." After leaving his daughter with their neighbor, Susan, James waved goodbye with a pile of firewood on his back. "Please take care of Lilith for me today. Princess, I'll be back soon." Sitting in the neighbor's house, the orange-haired husband put a pile of acorns on the table while telling the story of Lilith's father. "At first, I didn't even know he was your father. A young man suddenly came to the village in the mountains, living quietly and not speaking to anyone, as if carrying some untold story. There are many people with such stories in this world." Susan, the neighbor's wife, continued, "Then one night, your father came looking very pale. He was holding a newborn baby in his arms. That baby was you, Lilith. It was a clear, moonlit night. The young man named James had completely lost his usual calm and indifferent demeanor, becoming anxious and panicked as he hurriedly told his neighbor, "I'm sure she's not sick, but she won't eat. She must be very hungry, but every time I try to feed her milk, she screams and cries." Faced with this situation, the neighbor decided to check on the child. "Let me see." After taking Lilith from her father's arms, she realized the problem. "Oh my. So that's it. Ha ha, the poor thing is suffering. Come inside quickly." A moment later, inside the house, Susan brought out a bowl of fragrant liquid food. She explained that it was baby food, and she had mashed some apple and banana and mixed it with baby formula. "She can eat it now." Following the neighbor's instructions, a very tense and serious James slowly fed the baby a spoonful of food. At first, Lilith seemed hesitant, but after tasting it, she immediately began to eat with gusto and joy. It wasn't a big deal. Even though she was over 5 months old, she had only been drinking pre-mixed milk. Perhaps because she was tired of it, she had endured her hunger and expressed it in her own way. The neighbor laughed heartily and continued, "After that, he became very kind. Every time my husband and I appeared from afar, he would run out to greet us. He often gives us a lot of chopped firewood, too. He must have been very confused because it was his first time raising a baby, so after that day, He always asked and learned more about everything he needed help with. Hearing these stories about her father through the neighbor, Lilith couldn't help but exclaim, "He became a house husband just like that." Suddenly, the neighbor laughed, looking at the cards in his hand. "Ha ha, I won this time, kiddo. Checkmate." "Ha ha," he said, placing his cards on the table and then happily gathering all the acorns. However, Lilith's small hand stopped him, along with her voice, "Wait a minute. He, gotcha." With a smile, the adorable child gently revealed all her cards. Lilith triumphantly won and took all the acorns, looking smug. "Let's play again tomorrow. I always welcome a challenge." After a fun day at the neighbor's house, Lilith decided to say goodbye and go home as evening approached. "Thank you, Auntie and Uncle. I had a lot of fun today." Holding a basket of laundry, she told her neighbor, Auntie, you should go back. I'll do the laundry." Susan was surprised. "What? Why are you doing the laundry? Just leave it." Faced with her aunt's confused look, the girl cheerfully explained, "I'll do it so my dad doesn't have to do it himself after he comes back from the market." The child's filial piety and adorable appearance deeply touched her neighbor. "Oh dear, what an angelic child with a heart of gold. Then I'll do it before I leave. These are the clothes that need washing, right?" The neighbor wanted to help Lilith finish the laundry, but the little girl dodged to the side and shook her head. "Ah no, you can't. Dad's underwear is also in here." Hearing this, the neighbor blushed and gave up, letting the girl do the laundry herself. Oh my goodness. Carrying the laundry basket, the little girl's tiny feet walked step by step along the grassy path. Actually, her father didn't like her secretly doing the laundry, but Lilith decided to continue anyway. In her previous life, she was an orphan. The only memory she had of a benevolent guardian was her current father. Despite his young age, he took care of her himself, changing her diapers, feeding her, bathing her, and everything else. Day after day, the importance of her father being by her side from such a young age as their bond formed meant a lot to Lilith. Lilith told herself that she would try to grow up quickly and repay her father with filial piety. Dipping the clothes into the cool stream, Lilith sighed softly. The life of an ordinary person is so peaceful. I wish every day could be like this. However, in this world, a powerless person like her wasn't even considered human. Life is a bit poor, but compared to my past life, nothing can compare to this. When a better world is established, I'll simply enjoy a good life from then on. Reincarnation is wonderful. While the little girl was lost in thought and finishing the laundry, the sudden sound of hooves from behind startled her. Huh? Horseshoes in the village. Turning around, Lilith saw countless figures on horseback approaching. They looked at her coldly, casting shadows over her small face. The surrounding air became strangely oppressive and silent. On the clothing of the horsemen, Lilith saw an imperial insignia, recognizing them as the Imperial Army. A blue cloak, are they the DOS Holy Knights of the Empire? As she stared in bewilderment, the man leading the horsemen glanced down at her. He had vibrant purple eyes and jet black hair. Suddenly, he gave an order that stunned Lilith, "Seize her. It's the DOS Holy Knights of the Empire." The knight looked at her once more, then ordered his subordinates to capture her. Lilith was completely shocked and bewildered by their actions. Despite her attempts to resist, her small body was no match for them. The knights used a glowing stick to lightly touch her, causing Lilith to feel a sharp pain and cry out, "Ah, it hurts." Seeing this, the knight muttered a report, "She's an ability user. Seems she really is Enoch Rubinstein's daughter." Lilith was dumbfounded by their assessment. "I'm an ability user. Is there some mistake?" But the lead knight confirmed it, saying that it was obvious just by looking at her. The girl struggled. "Please let me go." But the knight held her firmly and coldly asked, "Where is Enoch Rubinstein?" The unfamiliar name made Lilith unconsciously reply, "Who's that?" But a second later, She froze, repeating the name Enoch Rubinstein in her head. Why is that name appearing now? Lilith was startled to remember it was a name from the novel The DOS Rebellion. He was the commander of the DOS Knights, the strongest military force in the story. A DOS Holy Knight, a swordsman, and a duke. The strongest character in the story. In his youth, he lost his young daughter because of the royal family, and one day, he sharpened his sword for revenge. At that time, he adopted another main character, Cheser, as his son. Enoch Rubinstein was one of the two main characters. So this knight is looking for Enoch Rubinstein and his daughter. Based on this information, this seems to be before the events of the original story begin, meaning Enoch Rubinstein's daughter must still be alive, right? But, Lilith wondered, what does that have to do with me? Never mind. She stopped struggling and turned to speak seriously to the knight. Hey, wait a minute. You've made a huge mistake. And first of all, I'm dizzy, the blood is rushing to my head. Can you put me down? As she spoke, she used her dramatic acting skills, leaving the knight bewildered. But it gave Lilith a chance to carefully observe his face. A knight with black hair and blue-violet eyes. There seems to be a character who looks like this. But who is it? Lilith couldn't immediately remember, but she also recognized her dangerous situation, so she put those vague thoughts aside. Sitting securely on the horse's back, Lilith asked the knight, "You're talking about Enoch Rubinstein, the duke who's also a holy knight and a swordsman, right? Silver hair and blue eyes." Although the child's tone was strange, the knight nodded slightly in confirmation. Hearing this, Lilith pointed at herself and said loudly, "I might look like that person because of my silver hair and blue eyes, but my dad's name is James Brown. Not Enoch something. Dad said my hair and eyes are like my mom's, who left home a long time ago." The clear explanation from a small child was truly remarkable. The black-haired knight paused for a moment and couldn't help but praise her. "You're well-educated, kid." While Lilith was still unsure what would happen next, a very familiar voice called her name. "Lilith." The voice was filled with panic and shock. The girl quickly turned to the side and, seeing the approaching figure, excitedly called out, "Dad." Seeing his daughter captured, the usually quiet James held a stick in his hand like a sharp sword and shouted, "What are you doing? If you don't want to die, put my daughter down." Her father's aggressive attitude made Lilith tremble. She panicked inwardly. "Dad? Are you crazy? Don't you know who these people are? Speaking disrespectfully to a high-ranking noble is grounds for immediate execution. And you're threatening to kill them. Oh my God, my dad's lost it." Thinking this, the girl clasped her hands together, trembling as she tried to make peace with the knight. "I'm sorry, my dad can't live without me. I think he's just temporarily lost his mind. If you can forgive him, I'll be eternally grateful. No matter how you look at it, he's just an ordinary citizen of the Empire. He's a 27-year-old single father living in a mountain village, struggling to make a living by gathering wood and hunting with his daughter." Lilith hurriedly explained the circumstances, but the knight's eyes were fixed on her father. Suddenly, the black-haired knight tossed Lilith to a subordinate. Then he walked towards Lilith's father, causing the girl to scream in terror. "Ah, don't. Please don't do anything to my dad." As he approached, the black-haired knight suddenly smiled and said, "It seems those things aren't true." Facing him, James held the stick like a sharp sword and coldly questioned, "Why are you here?" "Let my daughter go." Hearing this, the knight replied seriously, "Enoch Rubinstein, the Emperor requests your immediate return to the force and the fulfillment of your duties." Lilith continued to try to explain, completely bewildered by the situation. "Ah, no. I told you, my dad's name isn't Enoch something." But despite her cries, the black-haired knight continued to speak words that made James freeze. "It's been 7 years. Isn't it time to stop this? You know better than anyone. According to Pavilion military law, Deserters are executed immediately. Until their whereabouts are confirmed, they are considered fugitives and classified as Class 1 criminals. However, the wise emperor has respected your past contributions and your abilities. Despite violating military law, no arrest warrant has been issued against you. Your title and assets have not been confiscated either. Lilith listened to the knight's words in a daze. Wait a minute. Why is he saying things I don't understand at all? Accompanied by the confusion in her heart, the voice continued. Until now, all your illegal actions have been overlooked, and we have been waiting for you. It's time for you to return. Disobeying the Emperor's orders means seeking death. Once again, I will relay the Emperor's words. Standing opposite Lilith's father, the knight's eyes became mysterious with a faint purple glow. He emphasized, Enoch Rubinstein, return to the force and fulfill your duties from this day forward. Silently listening for a moment, a sarcastic smile appeared on James's indifferent face. Heh! The Emperor's words are still so flowery. They were before, and they are now. Her father's words immediately made Lilith almost pee her pants. What? Whose words? The Emperor's. Oh my God, mocking the nobility and insulting the royal family. Dad, you've really gone too far. Not understanding her daughter's worries, James continued, isn't it time for the Emperor to be more honest? He simply wants to keep the kennel empty for his dog to return, right? This isn't good. Lilith thought she needed to stop her father and escape before things got worse. She immediately bit the hand of the knight holding her. He unconsciously let go of her in pain, causing her to fall to the ground. Under her father's gaze, Lilith hurriedly ran towards him. But before she could get far, another hand grabbed her. James shouted angrily, "Damn it, let her go." Lilith tried to calm him down while reminding him, "Oh, wait, Dad. Please be quiet." Then she turned and apologized awkwardly to the knight. "Hoo-hoo, I'm sorry. Sir, I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. Please spare my father's life." Tears streamed down Lilith's cheeks. She thought sadly, why does that Enoch person look so much like me? She sobbed and pleaded with the knight, and actually, I know about Enoch something. I'll check everything, I'm sure he's hiding somewhere. I'll even help you find him. So please spare my dad's life, just this once. I'll go with you, I'll go. Please, I beg you. At this moment, as if sensing something, the knight's face suddenly changed. He held Lilith and quickly turned around, looking towards her father, James. Instinctively, Lilith also looked at her father in a daze. But more surprised than ever, strange energy continuously emanated from his body. Lilith asked herself in a daze, what is that? Her eyes widened in shock, as she saw her father's appearance gradually changing. Light enveloped his body, and his dark brown hair gradually turned silvery white. In an instant, he transformed into a stunningly handsome man with silvery white hair and deep blue eyes. Lilith's heart seemed to stop beating as she witnessed this scene. The 27-year-old single father living in the mountain village, who raised me alone, James, is that really him? The 27-year-old single father living in the mountain village, who raised me alone, James, could that really be him? The black-haired knight once again handed Lilith to a guard behind him and instructed, ensure the child's safety. Step back and wait for me. It was the same knight who had been carrying out the orders. This man only seriously carried out his duties under the command of the black-haired knight. Before Lilith could react or think much, an immense energy exploded in front of her. The intense power and those sword strikes easily pushed the black-haired knight back. Enoch Rubinstein's cold voice rang out, disobey and die. He must think that's a funny joke. And how do you plan to control me? As Enoch spoke, he brandished the old weapon in his hand, creating sharp sword trails. The black-cloaked knight could only struggle to defend himself. At this point, Enoch Rubinstein roared, "How dare you touch my daughter? His overwhelming aura and powerful killing intent made the black-cloaked knight grit his teeth and endure. There was even a small wound on his face caused by the previous sword energy. At this critical juncture, the knight holding Lilith put his sword to her neck and threatened, "Stop right there, Enoch Rubinstein. Surrender peacefully and come with us. Then your daughter's life will be spared." Seeing this, Enoch stopped attacking in alarm and anxiety. He called out to his daughter, then looked at the knights with disgust. "You're using my child to threaten me. The holy knights are truly laughable." Hearing this, the black-haired knight slowly bent down to pick up his sword and said, "We are merely carrying out the Emperor's orders. His Majesty has commanded that Enoch Rubinstein be brought back. At all costs." Hearing that familiar name again, Enoch coldly shook his head. "I've abandoned that name, and I have no intention of living under the royal family. Tell that to your master." The black-haired knight's face darkened, and he growled, "I'm not giving you a choice. This is an order." His sharp sword moved closer to Enoch's neck. The anger and frustration in Enoch's heart ignited and exploded. Energy surged through his arm. However, it was all stopped by the knight's threat from behind. "If you want your daughter safe, stop now." The chaotic situation and oppressive atmosphere infuriated Lilith. She yelled, "All right, wait. Wait a minute. To summarize the situation, my father, whom I thought was an insignificant character, is actually the hidden main character, Enoch Rubinstein. Well, then I'm part of his story." In other words, according to the original story, he lost his daughter because of the royal family and then plotted revenge against them. And in this world, he's taking care of that daughter. Is this real? Everything was clear now. Since she already knew the plot, Lilith had only one choice. Under everyone's doubtful gazes, she suddenly looked up, smiled, and clapped her hands. "Of course. If it's the Emperor's order, we should obey. Dad will be returning to the knights today, right?" Her sudden change of attitude stunned everyone around her. Later, in their house, Lilith threw a tantrum on the floor. "I look like my mom. I look like her. Why didn't you tell me? Why? Why?" Enoch sat tiredly in front of his daughter and apologized. "I'm sorry, my little princess. I'm truly sorry. Even with 10 mouths, I have nothing to say. But, my daughter." He paused, then suddenly smiled smugly. "Who do you take after to be so clever? You thought so quickly in that situation. Thanks to my princess, we've bought some time. Heh, they are such fools. Did they really think I'd go back once they released the hostage? As long as my princess is safe, I fear nothing. Now, hurry up and pack our things, let's run," he said cheerfully as he packed their belongings, while Lilith remained silent. Thinking, wait, is this really happening? No matter how you look at it, he looks like nothing more than a foolish villager. He probably only looked scary because they threatened to harm me. With that thought, Lilith said she wanted to talk to her father. She spoke seriously, "Don't run away. Let's go back to the Empire together. Dad, please return to the knights." Enoch was taken aback by this suggestion. Looking directly at her father, Lilith continued, "I want to live with pride. I want to go to the capital with you. I'll enroll in the Ability Training Academy and receive my ability user insignia. After all, I'm an ability user too." Enoch was completely startled by his daughter's clear words. He asked seriously, "What are you talking about? How do you know about the academy and all these things?" Lilith stammered, saying that the neighbor had told her. But Enoch was shocked. Why would the neighbor know about those things? And why would he tell a child? What was he thinking telling you about this? What was he thinking when he told you about this? Although there were still many questions and confusion in his heart, Enoch's expression softened. He silently looked at his daughter carefully, then placed his 2 hands on her tiny shoulders. "Lilith, listen carefully to what I'm about to say. The truth is, I always knew this day would come. Fearsome people like those outside had to come looking for us. Even though I knew it for a long time, I still decided to run away 7 years ago. Because I really didn't want you to grow up as an ability user. The life of an ability user, or the life of a noble, may seem very glamorous, but what outsiders see is not the whole truth. In the Pavilion Empire, ability users are treated like royal nobles. Depending on their rank and expertise, they are granted titles, own vast lands and countless gold coins, and have the right to command obedience and compliance. But these glamorous privileges always come with undeniable obligations. They must become the swords, shields, and scepters of the empire. They must sacrifice their lives to serve as members of the Royal Elite Federation. In a country where every day is a conquest of monster hunting, the Elite Federation is constantly deployed to the battlefield, no different from glorified war slaves. Ability users are both nobles and warriors. Soldiers and mags spend almost their entire lives on the battlefield, and the battlefield is a very scary place, my daughter. The friend I greeted just yesterday died, and was brought back on the same day. When I buried him with my own hands, I wondered, who will die tomorrow? And how much longer will I live? Lilith, I'm really scared. I don't want you to live a life like mine, a life where you have to face death every day. Life and death have become so commonplace that we've become numb to it. Lilith, the day I first saw you 7 years ago, when you were just born, was the day you became my whole world and the warm sunshine in this cold life. I can't bear the thought of losing you. His voice choked with sobs as he hugged his little daughter tightly. Lilith gently patted her poor father's back. She told herself, "Father, I understand you more than anyone, and I also want to fulfill your wish. But if you don't go back, this country will collapse." Yes, Enoch Rubinstein absolutely could not stay in this village. In principle, he had returned to the Knights to avenge his daughter. Adopt the male lead, Cheser, planned to embezzle 9 billion from within the Knights, and start a rebellion in this country. Because, about 10 years from now, all ordinary people would die. Recalling the events that unfolded, Lilith couldn't help but feel a chill down her spine. The royal family had carried out widespread genocide against those without abilities, a true genocide against those without magic. The only person who could stop it was her father. But if she ran away from here with him now, then he wouldn't adopt Cheshire, the male protagonist, and of course, he wouldn't be able to start a rebellion against the royal family. And then everything would fall apart, and innocent civilians would die. Yes, because she knew everything, Lilith couldn't live like this forever. She couldn't hide and watch this country collapse, countless small lives falling into misery. The little girl made up her mind and looked up at her father. "Dad, do you want me to live a life on the run?" Enoch shook his head weakly, troubled. "It's not like that. But you said you wanted to live a simple life with me, just the two of us." Lilith pouted and turned her head away. "Well, I changed my mind." Her attitude puzzled Enoch, who had to ask, "What do you mean?" The little girl widened her adorable eyes and said clearly, "Ability users are nobles, right? And I'm your daughter. So, I'm the most powerful noble, right? I can eat macarons every day, wear dresses and bows, right?" Lilith used her adorable, coquettish charm and her sparkling eyes of hope to persuade her father. If everything would go according to the original story, she thought she should use her previous life's memories to accelerate the development and meet the male protagonist, Cheshire, sooner. She had to ensure the rebellion would succeed. Lilith told her father, "I want to be a noble. I want to be a real princess. We'll go back, and you won't have to chop wood so hard and sell it at the market anymore. And I won't have to wait for you to come home all day. Also, I won't have to do laundry." Enoch retorted, "I told you that you don't need to do laundry, but you still do it anyway." Suddenly, Lilith stood up abruptly. The little girl saw that her acting cute wasn't very effective, so she would change tactics. She silently apologized to her father in her heart. Actually, she didn't want to act like this. But there was no other way. Lilith shouted angrily, "Why didn't you tell me?" "Why?" Enoch was clearly stunned by his daughter's anger. "Why didn't you want me to live as an ability user? What if I want to live as an ability user, as a noble? You didn't even bother to ask my opinion, and decided on your own." As she spoke, the little girl sobbed. Sure enough, Enoch, now worried, hurriedly tried to soothe her. "Oh, my princess," but Lilith resolutely dodged his embrace. "I don't want you to be the only one who calls me that. I really want to be a princess. I'm not your daughter." Enoch's eyes widened when he heard these words, as if struck by lightning. He exclaimed in panic, "What did you just say?" Lilith cried as she pointed towards the vast world outside. "I'm not James's daughter. I will be Duke Enoch's daughter. If you don't want to go, I'll ask those uncles out there to take me." Her strong words left Enoch completely speechless. Finally, faced with his boundless love and heartache for his daughter, he had to compromise and give in. "All right." Sitting in the carriage, looking at her house, Lilith sighed softly. "My beloved house, full of childhood memories. I never thought I'd have to leave like this." Now, she could confirm that her ordinary country life had truly ended, drawing a perfect full stop. Next would be the distant future. What awaited Lilith from now on was a cruel world. The carriage drove smoothly on the village road. Little Lilith leaned against her father's strong arm and dozed off. Suddenly, the carriage stopped abruptly, causing her to pitch forward, but thankfully, Enoch caught her in time. "Lilith, are you all right?" The little girl shook her head, saying she was fine, then looked curiously out the window. "Dad, what's that?" At this moment, the black-haired knight pulled the reins of his horse and approached the window. He observed for a moment and then said, "They are werewolves." Enoch exclaimed in surprise, "Are you kidding me? Werewolves? A pack of ferocious monsters with massive bodies like giant bears." The black-haired knight dismounted and prepared for battle. He said he knew their habitat was nearby, but he didn't expect them to come down to the village. He told Lilith and her father to wait in the carriage and that he would deal with them and come back. In this dangerous situation, Enoch opened the carriage door and instructed his daughter, "Stay here and don't move. You mustn't go outside, no matter what happens. Absolutely don't stick your head out." "Wait, where are you going, Dad?" Meanwhile, Enoch walked over to the black-haired knight, took his sword, and said, "Protect the carriage. If my daughter gets even a single scratch, you're dead." The bewildered knight wondered if Enoch wanted to fight them himself. It clearly wasn't necessary. But Enoch, holding the sword, walked forward, muttering in a disgusted tone, "You expect me to wait how long while you deal with each werewolf one by one?" With that, Enoch faced the pack of giant werewolves alone. Their fierce, primal aura hit him in the face, but Enoch didn't flinch at all. The overly dangerous situation made little Lilith, sitting in the carriage, cry out, "Dad, it's dangerous. Mister, why are you just standing there watching? Help my dad." Contrary to the little girl's worried appearance, the black-haired knight remained extremely calm, saying that Enoch could handle it himself. Lilith couldn't comprehend the weight of these words. There was no time for her to think because her father had already entered battle mode. His hands were covered in his magical energy, extending along the blade as he swung it at the werewolf monsters. The powerful, ferocious werewolves standing before Enoch were no different from rabbits, easily slaughtered. Blood splattered everywhere. The werewolves posed absolutely no pressure or danger to Enoch. What was this? The power of the world's strongest. The difference between reading the story and witnessing it in reality was indeed too great. A noble family that only produced top-tier ability users. The foundation of the aristocracy, the empire's only swordsman, the silver wolf on the battlefield, the undefeated warrior. That extraordinary existence was described about 5,000 times. The true power of the male lead. While the little girl was still bewildered and surprised by her father's strength, the two men argued about why he was asked to guard the carriage, but only stood and watched. Lilith wondered if this title upgrade wasn't too much. In the blink of an eye, she had become the daughter of the strongest. They traveled to the temple of Fasha, coming here to use the temple's transfer gate, which could be found in large cities, to reach the capital. Because commoners weren't allowed to enter the capital in ordinary clothes, Lilith changed into another outfit, a beautiful, soft outfit that she really liked. This was the change that came with a title upgrade overnight. The knights in the group looked at the beautiful little girl before them. They curiously asked about her age, and why she was so small at 7 years old. Had Duke Enoch starved her? So, do you get scolded? Is your dad scary? What's he like when he's angry? Have you ever been hit? Countless questions were posed by the two of them, and it seemed they were both very afraid of Duke Enoch. Lilith honestly replied that she would get scolded for hiding broccoli under her chicken, or when her dad caught her sneaking chocolate after brushing her teeth. Hearing that, the two men nodded and murmured, "You're still young, and he raises you so strictly." Of course, he's Enoch Rubinstein. Did you think he'd spoil his child? And both were astonished when Lilith said she had never been hit by her father. No, sir. I've never been hit or yelled at. But, uncles, is my dad really that scary? Asked about this, the two knights immediately shuddered dramatically. You know, Duke Enoch. He can tear a bear apart with his bare hands. As he spoke, the knight reenacted the terrifying scene. Lilith gasped when she heard these words. Tear a bear apart with his bare hands. The knight continued, he's cold. But how cold? He used to be someone very difficult to approach. But wasn't he quite close to the commander? The knight asked, then turned to look at the commander with black hair. Following everyone's gaze, Lilith saw the knight standing before the transfer gate, and at this moment, she remembered him. No wonder she felt his appearance was so familiar at first. Action Libra, Mos Doc's rank. 7 years ago, he had taken the commander's position after Lilith's father disappeared. He would be her father's closest comrade and companion in the future rebellion. As expected, he was a major character in the original story. So that person was Action. Indeed, with such a handsome face, there was no way he could be a supporting character. While Lilith recalled the details of the story, the two knights were still chatting with each other. Wasn't Duke Enoch about to kill the commander just now? Yeah, if anything had happened, it definitely would have been murder. Just then, the door behind the little girl opened. Her father had arrived. Lilith immediately ran towards him with joy and excitement, while the two knights stood up straight, not daring to say another word. Looking at her father in his knight's attire, his appearance and demeanor were completely different from the farmer he was before. Lilith was astonished by her father's appearance at this moment. Even if she hadn't read the novel, she would have immediately known that her father was the main character upon seeing this look of his. Facing his daughter's stunned gaze, the Duke also bent down slightly to look at his daughter in her new outfit. He lifted her up and admired her, then exclaimed in surprise, "An angel? No, this can't be happening. You are an angel. That's the true identity of my princess." Seeing her father start talking nonsense again, Lilith blushed with embarrassment. "Dad, you're doing it again." The Duke hugged his daughter, nuzzled his cheek against hers, and shed tears. "My daughter looks like this, while I'm always just wearing messy clothes." Watching the interaction between father and daughter, the two knights, who were originally very afraid of Duke Enoch, were now completely stunned by his besotted appearance. Unable to bear the cheesiness any longer, Action said coldly, "Isn't this a bit too much? Don't waste any more time. Let's go quickly." Duke Enoch, hearing this, carried his daughter and followed, pouting slightly as he said, "Sweetheart, give me a kiss." They stepped into the magical vortex of the transfer gate. In an instant, after stepping out, the scenery completely changed. They had arrived directly at the temple in the capital, thousands of miles away. Lilith looked around in awe at the beautiful and luxurious surroundings. In front of her, several people in formal attire approached with smiles. Duke Enoch. You really came back. Enoch greeted them softly, It's been a while, Your Highness. The man with silver-white hair clasped his hands and bowed before Enoch and his daughter. May the blessings of Primera be with you. Seeing Duke Enoch carrying his daughter away, the group of people asked awkwardly, Duke Enoch, are you going straight home? Shouldn't we also hold a welcoming ceremony? We prepared after receiving the news that you would return. Hearing this, Enoch stopped and glanced back. He said, The royal family will hold a welcoming ceremony. Right? If so, I'll see you there. Today's journey was very long, so I'm worried that my daughter is tired. The streets of the capital widened Lilith's eyes because there were more people here than she imagined. Lilith bid farewell to the knights, while action repeatedly reminded Duke Enoch to go straight home and not wander around. Enoch waved his hand impatiently, signaling him to leave quickly and stop. Clinging to him. He had come all the way to the capital, yet he was still nagging. Strolling down the street, Enoch asked worriedly, Princess, are you sure you don't want to take a carriage? It takes 15 minutes to walk home. Do you need me to carry you? The little girl shook her head and continued walking. If you always carry me, I'll forget how to walk. I can walk, and I also want to see the capital. Duke Enoch had to give in to his daughter's wishes, but still instructed, But if your feet hurt, tell me right away. Lilith smiled and nodded at her father, then glanced at the road ahead. She thought to herself, All right, now I need to focus. The protagonist no longer needed to think about avenging his daughter. Enoch Rubinstein. Lilith realized that she had made a big mistake by missing the opportunity for the story to begin. To fix it, she needed to follow the original plot from now on, at any cost. And the first thing she needed to do was. On the street, wherever the father and daughter went, countless commoners bowed their heads to the ground to salute. Greetings, Sir Knight. May the glory and blessings of Primera be with you. All commoners, without exception, knelt and bowed so much that the Duke felt disgusted and annoyed. This scene made Lilith somewhat uncomfortable. She knew this would happen, but it was too much. What kind of country was this where people had to kneel when greeting others? It completely stripped away a person's dignity and self-respect. If this world didn't have such an excessive denial of human rights, the protagonist wouldn't have needed to start a rebellion, and Lilith in her previous life wouldn't have had a topic for her essay. So the first thing she needed to do was find the other protagonist, Cheser, and ensure that he met her father. Her father couldn't start a rebellion in this rotten empire on his own. He needed Cheser's help. Cheser Rubinstein, DOS rank, swordsman of the Mage Knights. In the story, he was one of the strongest, along with Enoch Rubinstein, in the top tier. But there was a problem with the current situation. Initially, Cheser was an illegitimate child of a nobleman, living a bullied life, but he happened to catch Enoch Rubinstein's attention and was adopted. What exactly was that coincidental event? Their first encounter wasn't mentioned in the book, so Lilith didn't know how they met. And since his daughter was alive, it was highly likely that her father wouldn't pay attention to Cheser. Therefore, she needed to orchestrate their meeting. But this was like searching for a needle in a haystack. How could she find someone in such a vast capital, when she didn't even know what he looked like? Lilith sighed as she walked down the street with her father. Then she saw her father looking towards a dark alley and curiously followed his gaze. Dad. What's over there? The Duke shook his head and replied softly, It's nothing, nothing. It seems like a brawl. Anyway, the security forces are patrolling, so we don't need to worry. Let's go, my princess. Hearing this, Lilith became excited. She asked, If there's a fight, shouldn't we stop them to maintain order? The Duke sighed and confirmed that was true, but he didn't want his princess to be in danger. Faced with her father's attitude, Lilith tried to persuade him, "Don't worry, Dad, and let's just go, okay? You're very strong, so it'll be fine, right?" Having no choice, the Duke agreed to his daughter's decision. Then the two of them entered the alley. When she clearly saw the scene inside, Lilith gasped. She wondered, weren't they just kids? The Duke asked loudly, "What are you two doing?" The children, seeing someone appear, turned around in surprise. The child being beaten was a boy with bright red eyes. Lilith yelled angrily, "You brats!" Seeing a knight standing before them, the two children knelt down in fear and saluted. "Greetings, sir. May glory and blessings be upon Primera." Duke Enoch waved his hand slightly and asked, "What's going on here?" A child with light brown hair replied nervously, We apologize for the noise. That commoner brat didn't greet me, so I." Hearing his explanation, Lilith became even angrier and questioned, "You hit someone because they didn't greet you. And you're just a child." But faced with her questioning, the boy across from her innocently replied, "Because I'm an Octava." Octava was the 4th rank out of the 6 ranks among ability users. Lilith continued to ask, "You think you can hit someone like that just because you're an ability user?" The question made the two children look at each other again. Judging by their expressions, they naturally thought that being able to hit those with a lower rank than them was a matter of course. At this moment, Duke Enoch spoke up, stopping the children's conversation. "Stop causing trouble and leave quickly." The two children startled and stood at attention, about to salute again, but the Duke waved his hand impatiently. "Just go." Watching the backs of the two boys running like they were being chased by ghosts, Lilith once again confirmed that a rebellion was truly necessary. But she didn't say it out loud. Instead, muttering sarcastically, "Life in the Empire is so wonderful." Hearing this, the Duke sat down and patted her shoulder, wanting to explain to his daughter. "My little princess, you know," but before she could hear her father's words, the little girl remembered something she almost forgot. She then walked towards the boy who had been beaten in the corner and asked, "Are you okay?" Lilith looked worried when she saw the bruises all over the child's face and the blood at the corner of his mouth. She took out her handkerchief and offered it to him. "Here, wipe the blood off first." But unexpectedly, faced with her kindness, the boy swatted Lilith's hand away. Seeing his guarded look, Lilith said apologetically, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry for suddenly touching you. I'll leave the handkerchief here." As she spoke, she placed the handkerchief with the cute bunny design on the boy's leg. But as she got closer and looked at him from this angle, Lilith thought to herself, "I just thought he was badly beaten, so it's quite bad to think this, but isn't he too handsome? A fair face with jet black hair and red eyes. A truly mysterious and cold beauty." Looking deep into those eyes, Lilith gasped and hurriedly covered her mouth. Now with black hair and red eyes. If this was truly the world of the novel, there was an absolute rule: there was no way a random background character could be this handsome. If so, then this child must be Cheshire. After the shock, Lilith hurriedly approached and asked, "What's your name?" At this time, the Duke also walked up behind his daughter and said a few words of concern to the child. "Kid, are you in a lot of pain? Can you stand up?" But ignoring the concern of the Duke and Lilith, the child coldly tried to stand up and limped away. "Wait, little one." The Duke tried to hold the child back, but he was once again brushed aside. Lilith cried out in a panic, "Hey, wait a minute." Seeing his daughter wanting to chase after him, the Duke coldly held her back and said, "That's right, my little princess. There are many people who don't like nobles. That child doesn't seem comfortable. Let's leave it at that." With that, the Duke silently watched the child's receding figure. It seemed that seeing the clear separation between commoners and nobles and such blatant class discrimination also gave the Duke something to think about. Looking at her father's expression, Lilith realized something. Yes, this was definitely the world of the novel, and the main plot was progressing naturally. This must have been the first encounter between the two protagonists, which was described as coincidental. Carrying that thought, Lilith continued home with her father. Dad on the way, she hesitated before asking the Duke a question. Can I be friends with anyone I want? The strange question confused the Duke. He looked at his daughter worriedly. What do you mean? Facing her father's gaze, little Lilith lowered her head, looked at the ground, and sighed. I'm a noble. So does that mean I can't be friends with commoners? Hearing this question, the hand holding his daughter's hand suddenly tightened. He replied thoughtfully, No, Lilith. Whether noble, commoner, ability user, or non-ability user, it doesn't matter. As long as you're happy, you can be friends with anyone. Lilith looked at her father with surprised excitement. Really? Seeing the happy smile on his daughter's face, the Duke smiled back. Of course, my daughter. Then Lilith continued, that child earlier, I don't know where he went. I don't know why, but I'm still worried and keep thinking about him. The Duke wondered. Are you that curious about someone you just met? Yes, I think I want to be friends with him. Can you help me find him? I'm curious if his wounds have been treated, and I want to talk to him. After listening to his daughter's request, the Duke was stunned for a moment, then he suddenly scratched his head and burst out laughing. Ha ha! I've given birth to an angel. How kind your heart is. Held in her father's affectionate embrace, Lilith insisted, You'll help me find him, won't you, Dad? The Duke nodded, hugging his daughter. Yes, all right. Of course we should. Have I ever said no to you, my little princess? The answer made Lilith happily hug the Duke. You're the best, Dad. Thank you. Her small hand grasped the hem of Enoch's knight's coat. The smile on Lilith's face became serious, with a thought running through her mind, if the original story is still unfolding. Cheser should be at Marquis Onyx's house right now. Lilith knew where he was. Wait for me, Cheser. I'll find you as soon as possible. That evening, at Marquis Onyx's mansion, a voice questioned, Jonathan, have you lost your mind? What were you going to do if you threw that child away? It was Marquis Onyx scolding his eldest son. The boy, Jonathan, shouted back angrily. I can't stand that brat being in this house. These words further enraged Marquis Onyx. Shut up. What do you want me to do? If we carelessly throw him away, what will happen if he's caught in a random ability user inspection? Onyx rubbed his head in frustration. If they discover he's an ability user, they'll have to investigate his lineage. It's only a matter of time before they find out he carries my blood. If that happens, I won't just be the father of an illegitimate child, but also the one who threw him away like trash. Jonathan couldn't understand his father's worries. He angrily asked, if you didn't want to chase him away, then why didn't you announce the existence of that bastard child to the world? Marquis Onyx said that was why they had to lock him up and raise him in secret. This only confused Jonathan further. Because we could just kill him without anyone knowing. Jonathan couldn't accept breathing the same air as him. Hearing his son's heartless words, Marquis Onyx was stunned. Then he turned and left the room, not forgetting to warn, don't try anything similar. I won't interfere in any other matters. Jonathan watched his father's back with frustration, then glanced at the frail boy behind him with hateful eyes. He approached, grabbed the boy by the collar, and raised his fist. You filthy brat. Facing the fist that could strike his face at any moment, the pitiful Cheshire boy had no intention of resisting and simply closed his eyes, bracing for the impact. In that moment, he saw his movements slowing down. Cheshire's consciousness became hazy with bewildered questions. Did a small person like him really have power? Because he was the child of someone with abilities. But he was so tired. He just wanted it all to end soon. In the pitch-black room, no different from an isolated cell, Cheshire's painful coughs echoed after enduring another senseless beating. His tired body, covered in wounds, lay on the cold floor. Cheser told himself that dying would be much easier. But was he too afraid of death? With aching hands, he took a clean, beautiful handkerchief from his pocket. He recalled the scene that afternoon, when he had accidentally encountered the beautiful girl in the alley. She had given him a handkerchief, and wanted to help him wipe the blood from his face. Cheser looked at the handkerchief and wondered, that noble girl's handkerchief, why did I take it? I just want to die. Arriving in front of their house with her father, Lilith's expression showed how shocked she was. Oh my God, it's so big. What stood before her wasn't a house, but a castle. A luxurious and magnificent mansion, with a vast and endless garden. Seeing her father about to ring the doorbell, Lilith hurriedly stopped him. Dad, wait a minute. Her whole body trembled as she stammered, I need to prepare myself mentally. Seeing this, the Duke laughed. Ha ha. There's nothing to worry about, my little princess. Seeing her father's relaxed expression, Lilith couldn't help but wonder. Aren't you worried? After all, it's been 7 years since you last saw your family. They entered the mansion. Before their eyes, countless people rushed towards them. Young master. The excited calls of the butler and the servants in the castle echoed. Young master has really returned. Seeing familiar faces, a faint smile appeared on Enoch's usually cold face. Hello, REM. It's been a while, hasn't it? At that moment, butler REM also noticed the beautiful little girl beside the young master. Oh my goodness. Heavens. Is this the young master's daughter? Oh, I can't believe it. Standing before the crowd, Lilith calmly and politely lifted her skirt and curtsied. Hello. My name is Lilith. The child's mature demeanor and adorable appearance moved the butler to tears. It's a pleasure to meet you, Lilith. My name is Remina. Please call me REM. Not only was the butler delighted by the little girl, but the surrounding maids were quickly captivated by her cuteness. Oh my, the young miss is like an angel. She looks just like the young master. How adorable. Seeing everyone captivated by his princess daughter, Duke Enoch reluctantly spoke up to remind everyone. Are you planning to stand outside forever? Hearing this, the butler startled. Oh my, where are my manners? I apologize, young master and Miss Lilith. In my 50 years of life, I've never experienced such a touching moment. Enoch chuckled and led his daughter inside. Don't overdo it. As they walked, the butler continued to chat. We heard that the Holy Knights received a royal order to bring you back, young master. But truthfully, none of us, not even the master, had much hope. Hearing this, Enoch chuckled and exclaimed, I'm sure he'll be shocked to see me. But Lilith, walking beside him, couldn't laugh along with her father. Because her father's father, her grandfather, whenever he appeared, his presence was always overwhelming. Nordic Rubinstein. He was a true nobleman, like Lilith's father. He possessed a DOS rank ability. When she read about him, his pride seemed to manifest right before her eyes. In the original story, he was incredibly kind to Cheser, pretending not to care, but secretly arranging everything from the shadows. Lilith also secretly hoped that he would be equally kind to her, but it seemed like too much to ask. At this moment, the butler mentioned that Lady Audia was also here. Enoch asked in surprise, My sister, yes, Lady Audia believed that you would return, young master, so she has been staying with the young masters for the past 2 weeks. Another character appeared, confusing Lilith. She knew her father had an older sister, but that sister was never mentioned in the story, so this was the first time Lilith had heard that name. Oh my God, this is really happening. No matter how worried she was, she still had to face his family. The butler led the way, opening the door and inviting the father and daughter in. I'll inform the kitchen to prepare a feast. The grandest feast ever. How exciting. The door slowly opened, and the soft light inside the mansion shone directly on Lilith's face. It was the luxurious, splendid light from the beautiful chandeliers. Every corner of the room seemed to be gilded, sparkling, causing Lilith to once again gasp in surprise. Is this a palace? Is that real gold? It must be real gold, right? Not gold plating, but things in the castle actually made of gold. Seeing his daughter's stunned and bewildered look, the Duke asked worriedly, "What's wrong?" But Lilith shook her head awkwardly. She marveled that her poor father, James, not only hid his powers, but also his wealth. "Dad, isn't it a bit too confident to go straight upstairs like this?" Lilith felt extremely anxious. "Save me, oh my God." Seeing her father abruptly open the study door, Lilith wanted to stop him, but it was too late. She froze, looking inside the room with her father. At the desk sat a cold, middle-aged man and a beautiful young woman standing next to him. Seeing who had just opened the door, the beautiful girl exclaimed in surprise, "Oh my God, Enoch." Enoch smiled and said, "I'm back, father." Meanwhile, Lilith silently observed her grandfather, and had to admit that his presence was truly intimidating. How terrifying this feeling was. Grandfather Nordic slowly rose from his chair. Then he walked coldly in front of Enoch. His face looked frightening as he spoke each word, "You." But before he could say anything, Enoch playfully interrupted, "Father, you've aged quite a bit compared to before. This is so heartbreaking, oh my." Provoked, Grandfather Nordic raised his cane high and swung it down, "You little rascal." Just then, Audia, his older sister, intervened, "Father, there's a child here." The scene before her made Lilith tremble, as she clutched her father's coat. Grandfather Nordic glanced down at the little girl and asked, "Is that your daughter?" Duke Enoch, seeing this, protectively held his daughter and replied irritably, "What do you mean is that? She's my princess." With a terrifying aura like a tropical depression, Nordic continued, "You raised her by yourself for 7 years, without a single word to your family about whether you were alive or dead." Facing her grandfather's cold gaze, Lilith felt her heart tighten, and it was natural. She thought to herself, "He's probably thinking that I separated them for 7 years. If I were him, I would probably hate myself too. Yes, I guessed he would react like this." Thinking that, tears welled up in the beautiful girl's eyes. "Lilith, don't be discouraged, silly. It's just normal. I don't want to be hated, though." I'm sorry," Lilith said weakly and bowed her head. Her daughter's actions startled Duke Enoch with worry. "Princess Lilith, why are you apologizing?" Then the Duke irritably reminded his father, "Father, please adjust your expression to be more approachable. You're scaring my little princess." Hearing this, Nordic reluctantly interrupted, "Be quiet." Then he slowly bent down and sat facing Lilith. Looking at the scary man in front of her, Lilith couldn't help but feel confused. She wondered if he would really hit her. Thinking of that, she fearfully closed her eyes. But surprisingly, instead of a hit, or a slap, Grandfather Nordic gently placed his large hand on his granddaughter's soft cheek. That hand gently pinched Lilith's cheek. "What's this?" Looking at her father's stiff expression and secret smile, coupled with her grandfather's hands, Lilith didn't react immediately. Was this her grandfather pinching her cheek? A moment later, she excitedly smiled. "Grandpa, I am Lilith. I am 7 years old. Grandpa, it's nice to meet you." Then the little girl happily threw herself into her grandfather's arms. Grandfather Nordic also gently hugged his beautiful granddaughter. "That's right. I'm your grandfather." A little later, in the spacious hallway, Aunt Audia gently told Lilith that she would introduce her to her cousins. "I have 2 sons, and they are actually twins. They are a little mischievous and worry me, but they are both good kids. They've always wanted a sibling, so I'm sure they'll like you." Through her aunt's story, Lilith recalled the original story. Right, if they are her sons, then they must be the heirs of Antrace. The twin heirs of the Antrace dukedom. They are the nephews of Enoch Rubinstein. One of them will become a holy knight, and the other will become a magic swordsman. Standing in front of the door, Aunt Audia continued, but Theo seems a little frail, so I'm worried about him. The door to the room opened, and Lady Audia cheerfully called inside, "Look who's here, boys." However, Lilith's expression wasn't very excited because she had read the original story, and in this novel, many characters die, especially the twin brothers. Both of them will die. The twins were among the few people whom Cheshire, her father's adopted son, truly opened up to. So when they, the two people Cheshire considered his brothers, died, he almost lost his mind. Anyway, seeing the two brothers with her own eyes, Lilith had to admit they were truly identical. Meeting the twins, they huddled together, looking at the little girl in front of them. They both exclaimed how small she was. They looked exactly alike. Aunt Audia even laughed and said that it was embarrassing to admit, but when the two children really wanted to trick someone, even she, as their mother, couldn't tell them apart. She turned to her two sons. "Your uncle has just returned, and this cute little girl is your cousin. Her name is Lilith." The first person to greet the little girl was the brother who seemed frail. Theo. In the original story, Theo, the one destined to become a holy knight, was somewhat frail from birth. In the story, his personality was very gentle and caring, taking care of the male lead, Cheshire, like a real brother. Theo died tragically the spring after he was ordained as a knight due to a rare congenital disease. Considering the timeline, he has less than 4 years left. Facing his cousin, Theo gently patted her head. "Oh, how cute." On the other side, Aunt Audia also spoke to her other son, Leon. "Leon, you greet Lilith too." But Leon put on a cold expression and teased, "Such a small kid doesn't look like 7 years old at all." "Stupid, I was much taller at 7. His words made Audia angrily scold. "What? Did you just call your cousin stupid?" She turned and smiled at Lilith. "Lilith, although your brothers look exactly alike, their personalities are completely opposite. Theo is gentle and kind, while Leon is mischievous and cunning." Being bad-mouthed by his mother in front of his cousin whom he had just met, Leon was dissatisfied and about to retort. But his mother flicked him painfully. "Leon, behave yourself and speak politely. How many times have I told you? Girls won't like you if you keep acting like that. It hasn't even been a few days since you scared Miss Ballerina with that giant spider." Hearing that, Leon dejectedly replied, "Miss Merica Ballerina said she liked the spider, so I gave it to her." Audia sighed tiredly at her son's innocent naivety. "She only said that because she wanted to be friends with you, not because she actually liked that hairy spider. What young lady would like that? Huh?" Lilith, listening to their conversation, couldn't help but exclaim that raising a son was truly tiring. Leon, the one who is to become a magic swordsman, was very mischievous and had a habit of speaking without thinking. Therefore, he often argued with Cheshire. Of course, that wasn't his true feeling. No one cared more about Cheshire than Leon. In the original story, around Volume 2, a large-scale monster extermination battle took place. Leon sacrificed himself in that battle, using his body to shield Cheshire when he was ambushed. That passage was written so movingly that even now, remembering it, Lilith teared up. That moment made Leon both a hero and a pitiful figure. With complex thoughts and emotions in her heart, Lilith stepped closer, took Leon's hand, and said that she was happy to meet him. "Let's have fun playing together. We can go catch spiders together, like you wanted." He, I also like big spiders." Lilith truly wanted to get closer to him. But she spoke for a while without Leon responding. Suddenly, Leon's eyes became thoughtful, and he reached out and pinched Lilith's cheek. It seemed that because he didn't control his strength well, the pinch was a bit too hard, causing Lilith to cry out, "Ah! Don't do that, Leon!" Audia exclaimed in alarm, while Theo also hurriedly reminded his brother, "Hey, Leon, why did you pinch her cheek so hard?" Only then did Leon flinch and quickly let go of his hand. But the little girl's soft, white cheeks were already red. Tears like pearls rolled down her beautiful face. The pinch just now was painful, but Lilith didn't intend to cry like this. Why were tears falling? Why did he pinch her right when she was moved by? Remembering Leon's tragic end in the original story, Leon fumbled, not knowing how to explain, while Theo stepped closer to comfort his cousin. Oh dear, it must have hurt a lot. Lilith, don't cry. As for Leon, he mumbled dejectedly, I just thought you were cute. Audia stepped closer and angrily reprimanded her son. Quickly apologized to her. Leon had to awkwardly apologize to his newly met cousin. Seeing his appearance, Lilith thought to herself, he looks so pitiful. She smiled and wiped her tears. No, brother, I'm fine. It doesn't hurt at all. I'm sorry for suddenly crying like that. But, next time, please pinch my cheek more gently. Lilith's adorable smile and sweet voice made Leon stunned. For a moment, his face could be seen blushing. Turning his head away shyly, Leon replied, yeah, sure. That afternoon, as the sunset cast its glow over the mansion, Lilith sat before a lavish dining table, her mouth agape. Oh my goodness, this is so luxurious. Countless delicious dishes were beautifully presented, and there were also many fruits for dessert, just like a royal feast. Is everything ready? Everyone sat at the dining table, and was attentively served by the servants. Please enjoy your meal, Miss and young masters. Aunt Audia smiled and told Lilith to eat a lot. The little girl looked at the dining table in front of her. There were so many utensils, and Lilith didn't know where to start. What should she do? Well, for now, just follow Leon sitting next to me. At that moment, her grandfather also arrived at the dining table and sat down in his place. Seeing him come alone, Audia wondered, what about Enoch? Nordic replied, Enoch said he'll join us right after putting his things away. Let's eat first. His presence made the dining table quiet. So this is an aristocratic meal. The many rituals and rules made Lilith so worried that she couldn't even taste the food. Suddenly, he called Leon's name, startling the boy. I heard that you caused trouble. Seeing her father ask, Audia explained the whole story in place of her son. Father, Leon has apologized to Miss Ballerina. I also felt bad, so I wanted to have tea with Countess Ballerina before we left. Earlier, they were talking about something about a giant spider, but now it seems like it was a bigger deal than I anticipated. Grandfather continued, I've heard many stories about your mother causing trouble, but then I hear you're also causing chaos. I should probably tell you this. You also bear the Robin name. You're 12 years old now, so understand the weight of that name. Always carefully consider your actions to avoid trouble. Listening to his grandfather's reminders, coupled with Nordic's overwhelming aura, a mischievous child like Leon could only softly respond. Without daring to utter a word. Behave properly and don't do anything reckless. Maintain a demeanor worthy of being an example to others. I hope that from now on, I won't hear of any further issues that tarnish the family's honor. Leon listened and dejectedly nodded. I'm sorry. Lilith, sitting next to him, wasn't too surprised by his grandfather's attitude because he was exactly like in the original story. He was a perfect example of a true nobleman. He adhered to laws and rules as if his life depended on them, and he extremely disliked anything undignified. Because of this, Lilith felt like crying. Very timely, she cried without tears as she looked at the steak in front of her. Having never learned anything about noble etiquette, Lilith wondered what she should eat the steak with. Lilith painfully realized that she had never learned about noble etiquette. She wondered what to do. Maybe if she cheated a little, there would be a chance. Leon, sitting next to her, saw that his cousin hadn't eaten anything, so he asked with concern, why aren't you eating anything? Theo spoke up, Lilith, are you full already? Facing the two of them, Lilith could only awkwardly shake her head. No, that's not it. Their conversation quickly caught Aunt Audia's attention. She also asked with concern what was wrong with Lilith. And in the blink of an eye, the little girl became the spotlight of the entire dining room. Oh my, why did things turn out like this? How should I answer? Should I admit that I really don't know table manners? Would that be better? Both my grandfather and aunt know that I've never used these kinds of utensils, but they've probably been very worried about my father. Lilith thought uneasily. If they witness my clumsiness, will they feel worse? Why hasn't father arrived yet? The two brothers sitting on either side saw their cousin not saying a word, and they looked at each other and nodded as if understanding something. Just then, Duke Enoch opened the door and entered. Sorry, I'm late. Seeing her father, Lilith immediately regained her spirits, cheering inwardly, Father's here. James Brown, my savior. Catching his daughter's pleading eyes, the Duke immediately understood the problem. Ah, Lilith, let's eat together. But at that moment, Aunt Audia suddenly exclaimed, Oh my God, Leon. Lilith was startled and turned to look at her cousin. What's wrong? What happened? She saw Leon rudely picking up the steak on his plate and biting into it. His mother cried out in alarm, Why are you eating so rudely? Your cousin is sitting right next to you. Not only Leon but Theo as well. Oh my God, you too, Theo. Who taught you to use a knife so carelessly? Hold it properly. Amidst Aunt Audia's frantic reminders, Grandfather silently observed the situation without saying a word. After forcefully cutting the large piece of meat, Theo placed the plate of cut meat in front of Lilith. Here, eat, Lilith. Seeing the cut meat in front of her, Lilith's eyes sparkled with emotion. Oh my, these two children. How thoughtful. They are such good older brothers. Aunt Audia still didn't understand and kept nagging the two children, saying why they were behaving like that, as if they wanted to be scolded. Meanwhile, Duke Enoch breathed a sigh of relief and chuckled softly. Audia looked worriedly at her father. Father, I'm sorry. I should have taught them, but before she could finish, he shook his head and said, Enough. Let's eat. Seeing that, everyone had to drop the previous topic and eat together. Little Lilith put a piece of steak into her mouth. The tender, melt-in-your-mouth meat was incredibly delicious. It felt like her whole body was radiating with vitality. This is so blissful. Sitting opposite her, the Duke smiled happily seeing his daughter eating so deliciously. Grandfather also took a moment to care for his granddaughter. Is it good? Lilith hurriedly nodded. Yes, Grandpa, it's very delicious. Grandfather pondered and then continued, Good, then eat a lot. After dinner, night quickly fell over the mansion. Lilith was led by her father into her own room. Arriving here, Lilith exclaimed wow. Once again, and this was who knows how many times she had said that today. Do you like it, my daughter? Of course, she loved the room. Oh, look at this bed. How soft and comfortable. Duke Enoch lay down next to her and called her name. Hey, little princess. The boy we met in the alley earlier, do you remember? Seeing her father mention this, Lilith seriously nodded. That's Cheshire, she said to herself. Facing his daughter, the Duke seriously promised, I have to go find that boy right away. I'll locate him soon. And when I find where he lives, let's go ask if he needs help. Thank you, father, but there's no need to rush. Lilith happily nodded. In fact, she had just thought about it. It was a bit unfortunate, but for the time being. No matter what her father did, it would be difficult to find Cheshire. They had met by chance just now, but such a thing wouldn't happen a second time. According to the original story, Duke Enoch and Cheshire wouldn't meet again for another 2 years. Currently, Cheshire was being hidden and raised in Marquis Onyx's mansion. Meanwhile, having returned after 7 years of disappearance, Enoch was still unfamiliar with the capital's activities. He wasn't someone who would resort to illegal guilds operating in the underworld to search for someone. Looking at her father's contemplative face, Lilith snuggled into his arms and thought to herself, "I guess I'll have to help." Then she comforted him, "Let's go to sleep, father, and don't worry too much." Lilith made up her mind, "Your daughter will take care of everything." The next morning, a beautiful early morning at the Duke's mansion. The butler led two maids into Lilith's room and introduced them to her as her personal maids. The two maids were named Jetty and June. "These are the maids who will take care of Miss. The young master will be confined from today. Oh no, he won't leave his study. Will Miss be all right?" Standing before the butler, the little girl nodded vigorously. "Yes, sir. Of course." Her father would be very busy with his responsibilities as the head of the family after being absent for 7 years. Of course, she understood these things. The butler cheerfully continued the introduction. "Jetty and Jun are both experienced. They passed a 50-to-1 selection round to become your personal maids." Hearing this, the energetic maid with short hair introduced herself. "I'm Jetty, miss. I secured the position of Mrs. Personal Maid by winning the tournament in bathwater temperature adjustment, drawing, and making snacks. I am incredibly proud. And next to me is June. We are sisters, and I'm the older one." Lilith was surprised and exclaimed, "Wait a minute, there are tournaments for those things." "Really?" It was now the other maid's turn. "I'm June. I hold the record for 47 push-ups and 55 sit-ups, with a long jump of 3 meters, topping the overall rankings. Miss, please believe that I will serve you wholeheartedly." Hearing this, Lilith became even more confused, wondering why those skills were necessary in taking care of a 7-year-old child. But whatever. The little girl politely bowed to the two maids. "Nice to meet you both, Jetty and June." The little lady's politeness naturally moved the two maids to tears. "Miss, why are you so small and cute? Oh my, look at those chubby cheeks. They look like 2 dumplings, as if they'll melt." The butler, standing beside them, smiled happily and clapped his hands. All right, that's enough, girls. We must end the greetings. Now, we will announce Mrs. Schedule for today. The master has requested that we begin your education starting today, and your tutor will arrive at 10 a.m. From everyone's expressions, Lilith realized that they seemed to feel guilty for making her study the day after she arrived in the capital. But coincidentally, this was exactly what Lilith wanted. She excitedly replied, "Yes, Uncle Rem. I can study, and I'm very good at it. I'll try my best." Looking at the little one's serious demeanor, the butler awkwardly wiped his sweat. "Oh my, I should take note of this. You're really like the young master when he was your age. But today is just the first day, so it will mostly be introductions, and there won't be anything too difficult." A little later, during the lesson, a woman's voice rang out. "Now, look. There are 2 apples, right?" But then 2 more apples appeared. "Like that, so now there are 4 apples." This woman with red hair was the math tutor, Countess Lena. 2 times 2 equals 4. Listening to the teacher's lesson, Lilith felt speechless and clasped her hands. "At this age, I'm learning elementary multiplication." The teacher continued to ask, "Now, if 2 more apples appear, so they appear 3 times, how many apples will there be?" Leon quickly raised his hand and answered that 2 times 3 equals 6. The teacher had to remind him, "Young master, please let Miss answer. You already know this knowledge, don't you?" Theo also agreed with the teacher's thought. "That's right, Leon. Don't interrupt while Lilith is learning." Listening to their conversation, Lilith became even more frustrated. It would be better to let him interrupt. She could learn etiquette and liberal arts because they were necessary. But sitting and solving these elementary math problems was a completely different story. The teacher's voice rang out, "Is it too difficult for you? Lilith lied and answered, yes, then heard her reassure and continue, why don't you try? It's okay to be wrong, so just think about it. Seeing his cousin hesitate, Leon interrupted again, hey, kid, do you want me to tell you the answer? The teacher and Theo simultaneously and frustratedly reminded. Young master, no. I told you not to interrupt. Lilith frustratedly closed her eyes while doodling on the paper. She thought there was no time for this because she needed to find Cheshire as soon as possible. Cheshire became her family's son in the autumn of his 13th year. Based on the age difference with her father, Cheshire must be currently 11 years old. Meaning he would have to endure 2 years of abuse in Marquis Onyx's house. That's not okay. I need to help father find Cheshire sooner. To do that, first, I need to find someone. That's the future head of the Intelligence Guild, the one who will become father's ally in the future. If I can find that person first and pull them to our side. Not only will rescuing Cheshire become easier, but everything else will go much smoother. But to meet that person, Lilith needed to sneak out. However, in the body of a 7-year-old child, there were too many obstacles, and now she was stuck solving math problems in the study. She had already memorized all the multiplication tables from her previous life. Suddenly, the teacher exclaimed in surprise, little miss, how did you do that? While Lilith was still bewildered, her 2 cousins also huddled around to see her work in panic. Oh my, little one, you're so smart. You solved it without any calculations. Hearing that, Lilith unconsciously looked down at her work, causing her to widen her eyes. Oh my God, I wrote the entire multiplication table up to 19. Oh my God, this is bad. Lilith started to tremble. How could she get out of this situation? A 7-year-old writing the 19 times table. Wait a minute. A light bulb went off in her head. Maybe this situation wasn't so bad. There were children in this world who were good at mental calculations, right? Lilith quickly decided to use the fastest speed to complete the basic classes, and reduce wasted time to be able to help her father sooner. Immediately, she cheerfully asked the teacher. Teacher, did I do it correctly? The teacher was completely bewildered. How did you do that? Lilith smiled innocently and replied that it was because she had explained it very clearly, so she could do it. The flattery made the teacher's jaw drop again. No, I haven't taught you anything yet. Lilith chuckled and continued, if 2 apples appear 3 times, there will be 6. Thank you for teaching me. However, the teacher still didn't agree. But I didn't teach you that if 19 apples appear 9 times, the total will be 171. Seeing that, Lilith shouted, Teacher. The little girl silently prayed in her heart, please just let this go. On the outside, she pretended to be calm and suggested, you said that after multiplication comes division, right? Learning this is so fun, so please teach me more. The child's reaction made the teacher ponder for a long time. Suddenly, her eyes stopped, and she bent down and spoke to Lilith excitedly. I believe that the princess is a once-in-a-millennium genius, no doubt, and a rare talent. Oh my God, what's going on? The teacher clasped Lilith's small hands. Princess, from now on, I will do my best to support your studies. At that time, Lilith didn't know that she hadn't realized this action would lead to a great disaster later on. After the lesson, Lilith, along with her 2 cousins and her aunt, went to a bakery in the capital. The delicious, fresh pastries made the little girl feel very happy and satisfied. How is it, Lilith? Is it delicious? The little girl nodded happily and replied, it's the most delicious ever. So the 2 brothers sitting on either side kept feeding their cousin delicious pastries. Ha ha, so cute. Mother, Lilith really looks like a little squirrel. Aunt Audia, sitting next to them, watched the children interact and felt their happiness. She looks so cute when she eats well. Remember to eat slowly, or you'll get a stomachache. Lilith obediently nodded and thought to herself, to be able to eat such expensive macarons, this is heaven. Just then, Aunt Audia suddenly stood up and looked out the window, where a carriage had just stopped. Oh, is that Countess Ballerina? Oh, Merica is here too. Hearing the name Merica, Leon immediately panicked. What? Miss Merica. Then he hid behind his adorable cousin, making Lilith confused. What's wrong, brother? Why are you hiding like that? I can't hear anything. Leon helplessly hugged his cousin and whined, really, it's so annoying. Seeing that, Theo, sitting next to them, helplessly explained that Leon didn't like Merica very much. A few days ago, when she came to visit, Leon tried to scare her with a giant spider. Then Merica got hurt, so Mother scolded him. Hearing this, Lilith realized that Merica was the victim of the giant spider incident. From the doorway, a beautiful young lady in a green dress with shiny hair walked in cheerfully, calling Leon's name. But when she saw Leon tightly hugging another little girl, Merica's footsteps stopped. Her face darkened as she asked each word, "What's going on, Leon? Who is this girl?" Merica's completely changed attitude made Lilith shudder, wondering, why did the atmosphere suddenly become like a love battle? Who is this girl? Merica angrily asked, while Leon coldly replied, "Why do you care?" Her cousin's attitude scared Lilith, and she screamed inwardly, "Oh my God. Why did you say it like that? This isn't a romantic scene between a middle-aged couple." At this time, Audio approached and asked, "Merica, how's your forehead? Is it much better?" Merica smiled brightly and replied, pointing at Lilith, "Yes, I'm much better." "But who is this girl?" Audio smiled and replied, "She's Leon's cousin." Immediately, Merica became surprised. "What? Oh right, Duke Rubinstein is probably on his way here. Is it true that His Grace has returned?" Audio confirmed, "Yes, just yesterday." Hearing this, Merica breathed a sigh of relief. "You should have told me sooner." Then she tossed Leon aside and rushed over to Lilith. "Nice to meet you. Are you the Duke's daughter? You look just like an angel. You startled me. I almost got jealous of you. I'm Merica Ballerina, 12 years old." The older girl's quick change of face made Lilith feel a bit amused, but she gently introduced herself, "I'm Lilith Rubinstein, 7 years old." "You're so beautiful, like a princess." Merica blushed at the compliment. "Thank you, Lilith. And one more thing, I've sworn to spend my life with Leon." Ignoring Leon's helpless protests, "Are you crazy? Who decided that?" Merica smiled and patted Lilith's shoulder. "We'll be family, so you can call me Big Sister. Let's talk casually and get close, okay?" Observing her cousin's helpless expression, Lilith also felt that this was truly surreal. Unexpectedly, she saw Leon as a suitable partner, not Theo. Does Merica like that kind of bad boy? That evening, at the Duke's mansion, Enoch flung open the door and entered the room, calling his daughter's name, "My princess." Being hugged tightly, Lilith couldn't help but remind him, "Father, really?" The door almost fell off. "Have you had dinner yet?" Hearing that, the Duke let go of his daughter and replied, "What time is it now?" "I ate in my study earlier." Hearing his answer, Lilith smiled happily. "Good, because you didn't skip a meal. I also went out and ate something delicious with Aunt and my brothers. We even went to the tailor to get my measurements and order clothes. Aunt bought me 10 outfits." Listening to his daughter talk about her day, the Duke laughed loudly and asked her if she liked it. Lilith, of course, loved it because her aunt even bought her a princess dress. When the two of them were lying on the bed, before falling asleep, the Duke said, "Wait a minute. You studied all day today, right?" Lilith shook her head and replied that it wasn't all day, only until about 3 p.m. Duke Enoch's eyes softened as he looked at his child. "Sorry, my princess. I only intended for you to learn etiquette, but your grandfather made me add all sorts of things." Hearing these words, Lilith was surprised. "What are you talking about, father?" Of course, a person needs to learn everything, and studying is fun. Enoch asked suspiciously. Really? Lilith repeatedly confirmed, if you didn't make me study, my intelligence would probably be only that of a chimpanzee. Although he said that, the Duke still felt guilty for letting his daughter study so much. A child should have more time to play than study. Understanding her father's worries, Lilith could only find ways to reassure his tender heart that she truly liked studying more than playing. Really, father? If I find it too difficult or boring, I'll tell you. But it's really fun and easy. Looking at the smile on his daughter's face, the Duke let go of the burden in his heart. I understand. Actually, your math tutor said that you're a genius, but I already knew that. Hearing the sudden compliment, Lilith's eyes widened in excitement. Really? Really? She felt a little embarrassed at being praised for solving an elementary school problem. But if her father liked it, then it was good. The Duke embraced his daughter again, nuzzling her soft cheek. Who does my daughter take after? Who is she so smart like? Lilith smiled. Like father. I'm very busy today, aren't I? I've worked hard. All the Duke's fatigue vanished after the caring inquiry of his little daughter. It's okay, my dear. Our genius daughter is studying hard. So father can't just sit around either, right? Just like her father, Lilith felt happy looking at his smiling face. She didn't feel too bad for making her father proud of her. This feeling was quite new, but also wonderful. Ha, a genius. It's fun being a genius, huh? But a few days later, Lilith wanted to take back that thought. The little girl really wanted to take back her stupid actions. Actually, I'm not a genius. Oh my God! Standing in front of the little girl was a new teacher. The little girl wanted to retract her words. I'm not a genius at all. Oh my God. The reason for such despair was facing a male teacher. It's an honor to meet you, young lady. I'm Robert Quinn, a member of the Magic Talent Department. You can call me Robert, Princess. Yes, sir, Lilith replied weakly, causing the Duke standing next to her to reassure her, don't worry too much, my daughter. Just answer this person's questions comfortably. If you don't know, just say you don't know. Speaking of which, the Duke couldn't help but recall the conversation with the math teacher last time. The math teacher had presented all of Lilith's perfect assignments and said that she wasn't qualified to teach the princess. Although it seemed a bit unbelievable, the teacher kept repeating that the princess was truly a genius, a true prodigy. When children show exceptional abilities in subjects like mathematics, they are recruited by the Tower for early childhood education programs. Grandfather Nordic also said that he had contacted the Tower, and he would personally verify Lilith's level of ability. Upon hearing that news, Enoch irritably questioned why they didn't ask Lilith about this and hadn't discussed it with him. Grandfather Nordic replied that this was just a simple children's aptitude test. Whether the child went to the Tower or not was still her decision. However, a good result would reassure Enoch, knowing that she could work at the Tower later. Indeed, after hearing his father's words, Enoch fell silent. It wasn't a lie. Because in the Pavilion Empire, all high-level ability users were required to enlist in the military, but the Tower researchers were at the bottom of the enlistment list. Only if the Empire collapsed would they ever have to participate in bloody wars. So joining the Tower was something the Duke wished for his daughter. Enoch sighed, for now, I'll ask Lilith's opinion. At this time, Grandfather Nordic also bent down and asked his granddaughter, are you nervous? You just need to do the same as yesterday, when you studied with the teachers. However, Lilith blamed herself for being too obvious. The matter had become this big because of studying math. When casting spells, formulas were used, and the ones who created those formulas were the researchers at the Tower. They had one thing in common. They were all mathematical prodigies. The field of mathematics was the underlying principle behind the magic circle. That was why the tower sought out children who were good at math and supported their talent development at a young age. Lilith knew this. She had memorized the entire world settings from the original story, but she hadn't expected this problem. Herself, a genius? More like an idiot. At this moment, Robert looked back hesitantly and introduced, and over there is. As the Duke knows, that's Oscar Manuel. He's the youngest tower master in history. A very beautiful young man, just like an elf, with striking golden eyes. Looking at that person, Lilith silently gasped in surprise. It's Oscar. I didn't expect to meet such an important figure so soon. Was this really the butterfly effect caused just by doing some multiplication and division? Tower Master Oscar was actually an enemy. When Enoch prepared for the rebellion and recruited high-level ability users, nobles and politicians sided with him. However, her father Enoch couldn't win over the tower. Oscar hadn't helped her father once until the very end. If her father had been able to control the tower where this person played a crucial role, the rebellion might have taken place 3 years earlier. But then, did Oscar support the Empire? Not necessarily. Even though Lilith had read the entire original story, she still couldn't understand his motives. Lilith stared at the chalk in front of her, then held it in her hand, thinking, I've decided. I'll pretend to be a prodigy and establish a connection with the tower to win Oscar over to our side. All right, having a goal feels a bit better. The little girl decided to solve the problem from today's lesson. A calculation with a fairly large number, but the little girl solved it quickly. The examiner, Robert, exclaimed in astonishment, wonderful. Even Duke Enoch, witnessing it firsthand, was very surprised. Oh, my daughter truly is a genius. But the Tower Master, Oscar, coldly interrupted, are you kidding me? Did I come here just to watch a child play with toys? Robert, hearing that, hurriedly apologized. Facing him, Oscar's pale golden eyes became frightening as he repeated once more, ensure a thorough examination. Flustered, Robert immediately changed the problem on the board so that little Lilith could. Looking closely at this new problem, Lilith couldn't help but ask in silence, what is this? Internally, the little girl continuously complained, are you asking a 7-year-old to solve a linear equation? Oscar stepped closer, cheerfully tilting his chin in provocation. Try it. Lilith silently held the chalk, looking at the problem on the board. She hadn't intended to solve it, but this was crazy. This Oscar guy must be living in his own world. Obsessed with being a genius. After a moment of hesitation, the little girl shook her head and said, I don't know. This reaction surprised and puzzled Oscar. Robert stepped closer to comfort her, you don't need to be sad, princess. Even the prodigies recruited by the tower can't solve this problem, at just 7 years old. Both her grandfather and father picked her up and comforted her. That's right, little princess. You did well. This problem is too difficult. Our princess is so smart. You did a good job, Lilith. But contrary to everyone else, that Oscar turned and left in a very annoyed tone, wasting time on a fool. His words immediately darkened Duke Enoch's face. Lilith sensed her father's overwhelming aura, and she predicted that things would get bad. Just as she thought, the Duke, his face cold, looked at Oscar's back and spoke, stop right there. Oscar, hearing that, calmly turned around to face the Duke and replied, I said I just wasted my time on a fool. Duke Enoch was so angry that he laughed, then gritted his teeth and demanded, apologize to my daughter right now. Oscar calmly adjusted his cuff and pointed at his wristwatch. You should apologize to me for wasting my precious time. You've wasted 1 hour and 37 minutes of mine. Enoch frowned in retort, who told you to come here? It's unnecessary for the Tower Master to come in person, and you came here on your own accord. Oscar shrugged provocatively. I was just curious, since it's Enoch Rubinstein's daughter, after all. But it seems that she's no different from other disappointing children. Everyone is just infatuated with number games. His words were extremely outrageous. Enoch, of course, wasn't convinced, and he said that even when he was 7 years old, he couldn't do what his daughter had just done. Who could solve that problem at her age? Unexpectedly, Oscar pointed to himself, me. I solved it correctly when I was 7. Ignoring him, Enoch repeatedly demanded, apologize. Oscar stubbornly kept replying, I refuse. The rude and stubborn attitude made Enoch unable to bear the anger, and he roared, do you have any manners? Seeing his son get angry, Nordic had to intervene to mediate. He looked at Oscar and spoke, Tower Master, I was the one who contacted you regarding my granddaughter. It's a pity that she didn't meet your expectations. Let's consider the matter closed. And let's end it here today. Although Nordic had humbled himself, that Oscar didn't seem to stop. He continued to laugh scornfully. Is that so? It seems like Nordic has gotten old, huh? Where's the sharp judgment I used to respect? It was unbelievable that he dared to be so disrespectful to Nordic. Duke Enoch flew into a rage and yelled, Master of the Tower. Standing aside, listening to their conversation, Lilith clutched her clothes to control her rising anger. Control yourself, control yourself. Don't show it, Lilith. Nothing good will come of it. Please, however, two conflicting thoughts appeared in the little girl's mind, held together by a thin thread of reason. Why should I hold back? Should I just let the person who insulted grandfather leave so easily? Oscar waved his hand. We will welcome your return. Your daughter is just one of the mediocre ones in this field. Don't dream. Just focus on rebuilding the family you left behind for 7 years and pass it on to the next generation. Oscar's final words successfully snapped the single thread of reason in Lilith's mind. Did he really have to go that far? So, the little girl stepped forward and said loudly, I'll solve it. Give me 5 more minutes. I'll retake that test. And if I answer correctly, you'll have to apologize to my grandfather and father for being rude. Faced with this request, Oscar smirked and nodded. All right, please. Watching his daughter pick up the chalk once more, Duke Enoch anxiously advised, My princess, you don't need to push yourself too hard. However, Lilith resolutely walked towards the board. Everyone around focused on the little girl's every move. Even Oscar was no exception. A moment later, when the last chalk mark stopped, astonishment was clearly visible on the faces of everyone standing there. Lilith finished her solution and turned to look at him. The 17-year-old Tower Master, Oscar. Under the astonished gazes of everyone, the tiny 7-year-old had successfully solved the equation. A moment later, Oscar's voice rang out, I've been completely defeated. I sincerely apologize for offending you too. He bowed his head earnestly before Enoch and Nordic. Lilith once again had to look directly at this young man because his attitude was too strange. He had been so rude just now, but now he was so serious. She had thought he would stomp his feet in anger until evening. But what's with the madness in his eyes? Oscar looked at Nordic and Enoch and suggested, I have an educational proposal regarding your granddaughter. Sensing something ominous, Lilith shuddered. Just as she thought, he must be an X-factor. And that afternoon, under the warm sunset, Lilith sat at the dining table, feeling that everything was surreal. She wondered what she had done wrong because, afterward, Oscar had dinner with their family. And he offered to personally teach Lilith. Of course, because the opportunity presented itself, and Lilith wanted to recruit him, she had to agree to this. But while trying to force the issue, she only made things worse. While sitting at the table, the door suddenly opened, making Lilith jump. Oscar walked in, rubbing his stomach. Thanks for the meal. Then he sat down next to Lilith. Facing this guy, Lilith silently became wary. For some reason, he looked like a different person. Oscar looked at the little girl, then he closed his eyes slightly and murmured, Let's study a little more. Following his voice, magical energy appeared, supporting a sheet of paper that floated right in front of Lilith. Amazing, isn't it? although she didn't like this guy very much. Lilith had to admit the magic was truly wonderful. Oscar explained thoroughly, every space has coordinates. To create a magic formula, you need to know how to express the concept of space using mathematical equations. Lilith immediately understood. So, it means expressing space using methods. Meaning you need to have a general understanding of the concept of vectors, a part of advanced natural science education, to be able to create magic formulas. If so, then magic seems quite systematic, huh? Oscar wrote on the paper. Do you know numbers smaller than 0? Lilith, of course, knew, but she feigned ignorance. There are numbers smaller than 0. Giving her a calculation, Oscar told her to solve it herself. It was the calculation 3 minus 5. Taking the paper, the little girl pondered. I guess I have to pretend to think for a while and then write the answer, right? It seemed like he was going to teach her about the concept of negative numbers. Suddenly, Oscar uttered 2 words, so small. Lilith was startled. Small? What's small? Are you talking about the number? Oscar smiled and shook his head slightly. No, I'm talking about you. You're so small. Hearing these words, Lilith was startled, but his next words made her even more frightened. A 7-year-old, being this small, is a bit unusual. Lilith's hand trembled as she held the pen, wondering, that's right, I'm smaller than my peers, and there's a reason behind that. He hasn't figured something out, has he? At this moment, Oscar shrugged and continued, maybe it's because you don't eat enough to grow. Actually, Oscar, this character Lilith had read enough to remember the original story. But she still couldn't understand him. Was he talking nonsense, or did he really know her secret? Lilith didn't know anymore. The little girl pretended nothing was wrong and mumbled, then I'll eat a lot from now on. Oscar nodded with satisfaction. Eat a lot, and you need to eat healthier to grow bigger faster if you want to work with me. Lilith coldly replied, but I'm not going to the tower. Oscar explained, puzzled, working at the tower would be more convenient for you. Lilith smiled and nodded. If so, then I'll reconsider. That night, in her bedroom, the little girl couldn't help but recall the events that had transpired. The knights she had met before were also very surprised to learn that her real age was 7. Because, how could a 7-year-old be so small? Even her brother Leon had sensed it. Actually, when Lilith still thought she was just a supporting character. She had assumed that her body was just developing slower than others. But it turned out there was a reason for the slow development. Being the child of the main character, it was only natural, but she wasn't an ordinary person. Lilith Rubinstein, kidnapped by the royal family. This pitiful supporting character later died, and that was eventually revealed, but the truth was. At this time, the Duke came to her bedside and stroked his daughter's head. My genius princess, it's time to sleep. Lilith grumbled bashfully, don't call me a genius anymore. Enoch chuckled and hugged her tightly as usual. My daughter was the best today. Did you see how grandfather's smile stretched from ear to ear? He always told me not to act carelessly, but today he was the overexcited one. As he spoke, the Duke yawned widely, causing Lilith to chuckle and advise, if you're tired, go to sleep quickly. The Duke asked blankly, why? Can't the princess sleep? Lilith put on a wise old face and nodded, saying that the princess had something on her mind. Duke Enoch reached into her bookcase and pulled out a book. You must not be sleepy. Do you want me to read you a story? Let's see, today's story is the story of the princess trapped in the tower. Lilith pretended to be enthusiastic out of boredom because, ever since she remembered her past life, the bedtime story routine had become quite dull. Her father loved to read her stories, so she always patiently endured and listened attentively. Today's story started quite similarly to their situation, making Lilith laugh. Once upon a time, there was a kind king and a princess. The king loved his daughter, the princess, very much. Then one day, when the princess was 7 years old, the evil king of the neighboring country kidnapped the princess. The good king, after losing his daughter, cried every day. The good king offered his treasures to the evil king and became his servant. But even so, the evil king still didn't return the princess. Hearing the story up to this point, Lilith was completely stunned, while Duke Enoch grumbled about how they could be so cruel as to separate father and daughter like that. As for Lilith, she was surprised because why did this story sound more and more familiar? The good king overcame his sadness and met a boy, a very healthy boy. One day in the future, when the boy reunited with the princess, he would be able to become a precious older brother. Therefore, the good king adopted the boy. Hearing this, Lilith blurted out, "Wait a minute." Under her father's questioning gaze, the little girl explained awkwardly, "Oh, it's nothing. I just felt happy, so please continue reading, father." The story continued, and then one day, the evil king announced that the princess had fallen ill and passed away. This plot twist made Duke Enoch unable to comprehend, and he was about to close the book. The princess died just like that. What kind of nonsense story is this? However, Lilith urged her father to continue reading. She explained that it was very possible that the evil king was lying because there was no way the princess actually died. It's a story about the princess, so how could the princess die? So Enoch continued to turn the pages. The good king was furious, and he decided to take revenge with the prince. The good king and the prince defeated all the bad guys from the evil kingdom, and finally, they captured the evil king and pointed their swords at him together. "I will avenge my daughter." As he told the story, Duke Enoch acted out the motions just like in the story, causing Lilith to completely freeze. These scenes too. Those were scenes that Lilith was all too familiar with from reading the original story of this world. That rebellion, when the king was captured by Enoch, he had said some very strange words. "Enoch Rubinstein, do you think this matter will be as easy as you wish?" Along with the old king's words, Duke Enoch was shocked to see a figure appear before him. It was a girl with long, platinum blonde hair. Duke Enoch stammered, calling the girl's name, Lilith. It was indeed his daughter, but hadn't his daughter died at the age of 7? To reclaim his kidnapped daughter, Enoch Rubinstein had braved countless battlefields. When he learned of his daughter's death, his sword turned and pointed towards the emperor. It turned out his daughter possessed a hidden identity, and the emperor, who had known about it from early on, hid her and exploited her power. The daughter, brainwashed by the emperor, began to kill indiscriminately. Enoch Rubinstein wanted to bring his daughter back, but he couldn't find a way. The one who stopped her was this man. Reading up to this point, Enoch slammed the book shut, wondering, is this a children's fairy tale? Lilith saw that Enoch had stopped reading and asked, "What happened?" Enoch replied, "It's not a happy ending. I think we can stop reading now. From now on, I'll read it beforehand before reading to you. It's really harmful content." "I'm sorry, princess." Unexpectedly, Lilith said, "But anyway, it was a happy ending." Enoch was extremely surprised. "What? Where's the happy ending?" Lilith replied, "If the princess hadn't been kidnapped, then the good king wouldn't have had to take revenge on the bad king, right? And in the end, the good king destroyed the evil king. So everyone would be happy, right?" Enoch asked, "Do you really think so? Even though the princess died?" Lilith replied, "There was no other way. That princess was brainwashed by the evil king. But anyway, the princess killed a lot of people." Enoch lay down in dissatisfaction. But because the princess died, it's not a happy ending." Lilith retorted, "It is a happy ending." Enoch sat up, his chest heaving, explaining to his daughter, "No, it's not. Listen, the main character is the kind king, right? The main character's beloved daughter died, right? So even if everyone else is happy, the main character isn't, right? If the main character isn't happy, then it's not a happy ending, Lilith. How can a father who lost his beloved daughter be happy? So, this is not a happy ending." Lilith listened to her father and thought to herself, the original story definitely had a happy ending. After Cheser harmed Enoch Rubinstein's daughter, the story ended with the scene of a new, peaceful empire being born. So after the original story ended, what happened to the father? Living in the peaceful country built on his daughter's grave, was the main character happy? At this moment, she suddenly called out to her father, hesitantly asking him, what would happen if father was that kind king, and I was the princess? How would father live after I died? Enoch hugged her tightly and asked softly, what do you mean, how would I live? I wouldn't be able to live. Did the kind king think that way too? When he thought the princess was dead, he didn't die immediately. Maybe he planned to kill himself after taking revenge. Lilith asked in a panic, what? What does that mean? What if father also dies? Enoch smiled. You'll understand when you have your own child. You'll feel the same way. If I miss my little princess, I'd rather follow her. I can't live without my little princess. Lilith immediately shouted in protest, no. Her agitated look made Enoch laugh. Look at your face. Don't worry. This is just a fairy tale. I won't lose my little princess in the first place. Lilith thought, but you were supposed to. If things went according to the original story. At this time, Enoch continued proudly, and even if I lost you, I wouldn't be stupid enough to become the subordinate of an evil king. I would charge right in and rescue my princess. Lilith muttered under her breath, it wouldn't be that easy. Then she spoke up, Father, I have a question. Don't all ability users have to go to the battlefield when the Emperor orders it? Enoch nodded. Yes, that's right. Lilith asked again, but before, you said I didn't have to go. Enoch smiled and replied, right, our princess doesn't have to go. Lilith wondered further, why? I'm your daughter, so I'm a strong ability user, right? Then shouldn't I go? Enoch affirmed, no, you don't have to go. I have my own way. Lilith was extremely curious. What does that mean? Enoch hugged her and closed his eyes. It's nothing. Anyway, I'm so sleepy. Lying in her father's arms, Lilith thought, even without hearing the answer, I can still guess your plan. You'll soon meet the Emperor alone. And with a 99.9% chance, you'll probably ask for exemption from military service for me. The card you revealed in the negotiations with the Emperor is too obvious. From now on, you'll become an obedient dog, listening to the Emperor without being able to object. The kind king couldn't help but become the subordinate of the evil king. Because the main character has a weakness. That's his daughter. Even if I weren't kidnapped by the Emperor, you still wouldn't be free. You would negotiate with the Emperor so I wouldn't be sent to the battlefield. The kind king would eventually become the pawn of the evil king. You'll fight in a meaningless war. Father, the main character, is a righteous man who hates the Empire's tyranny, such as the wars of aggression, but I know. You would do anything for your princess. That's right, you're someone who's willing to take up a sword for me, Lilith. If the main character isn't happy, then it's not a happy ending. Lilith, I can't live without my princess. Lilith thought, I was wrong to think that daughter was just a catalyst for the original story. Living as the Emperor's puppet. Deciding on revenge. Finally succeeding in the rebellion. Every action you took had one goal, and that purpose was me. The original story, which I thought definitely had a happy ending, turned out to be a clear tragedy for the main character, who lost his purpose. After the original story concluded. You might have followed me. So, what I need to do is, not only help you achieve a peaceful ending like in the original story, but I have to survive. I have to stay by your side, safely. No matter what happens. After the original story ends, for the main character's happy ending, Enoch Rubinstein. Father, me too. I can also do anything for you. In this world. The highest rank, DOS. And in descending order, Quarto, Septima, octava, noveno. Finally, the lowest rank, dies. There's an entity that oversees ability users, classified into 6 ranks. Primera. The existence of Primera is the source of magic. The being closest to God, an omnipotent existence. Because of this, Primera is only born once per generation. Since the founding of the empire, only the Pavilion royal family has produced Primera. That's the rank of the emperor. The 12th prince's rank has been determined to be quarto. The emperor was furious when he heard the news. Why wasn't Primera born? The emperor has had 14 children so far, but there hasn't been a Primera yet. The absence of the next Primera is causing unrest among the populace. At this moment, the emperor asked his subordinate, "You don't think it will never be born, do you?" The subordinate bowed his head and reassured him, "Don't worry, Your Majesty. Your Majesty, you are still young and healthy, so you will surely give birth to the next Primera." This person was the emperor of the Pavilion Empire, Nicholas von Pavilion, 48 years old. 7 years ago, when Enoch left, the emperor was furious. Enoch's absence was a tremendous loss of power. For those who wait patiently, their time will come. If he hadn't been patient and forced Enoch to submit right then, he would have died long ago. And Primera, who consumes life force instead of mana, has a lifespan twice that of ordinary people. The omnipotent Primera can brainwash talented individuals to make them loyal, but it requires a significant amount of life force. Especially when the target is someone as powerful as Enoch Rubinstein. The emperor muttered angrily, "Does he know the patience I've had to endure for the past 7 years?" The emperor, who bears the title of the conquering king, Nicholas, still has a few nations that are thorns in his side. He presumed that Enoch had returned to his daughter. He chuckled, thinking, "Sir Enoch will soon bring me a wonderful return gift." The next morning, 2 maids came to Lilith's room and asked, "Miss is going to the study soon, right?" "I'll prepare your things, miss." Lilith nodded, sitting silently on the bed. Sadly, she looked at her legs, "Too short. I am too short. And not developing. If I keep developing this slowly, my true identity will be revealed to everyone. I need to grow up quickly. First, I have to rescue cheser as planned, and then I have to enter the development academy as soon as possible. Because talented people have to go there to properly use their abilities by receiving the emperor's power. Only the emperor can unlock the core within the hearts of talented individuals. And I need to use my ability as soon as possible. By using my ability and consuming life force, I can grow similar to others. That's how I can hide my identity." At that moment, she heard the maids whispering, "Have you heard that rumor?" "What is it?" "Another failure. They say that the 12th prince's rank is quarto." "Oh my, really? I thought it would be Primera this time." "Many people say that the gods have abandoned the royal family, because there's still no Primera." "No way. Maybe it'll happen soon. It's so strange. Until now, the first or second child of the royal family was always Primera." "That's right. No Primera. There are many princes and princesses, but there's no crown prince yet. Isn't this the first time this has happened?" Primera is the one who holds absolute power, born once every generation. So far, Primera has always been born within the royal family without exception. And only Primera, a descendant of the emperor's bloodline, can become the crown prince. Hearing this, Lilith crossed her arms and cursed inwardly, "That damn emperor. Just try giving birth 100 times. See if any Primera is born. In the royal family. There won't be any Primera in this generation." The maids were still excitedly discussing, "Surely Primera can't be born in a different family, right?" Lilith sat listening, only sneering inwardly. At that moment, the 2 maids returned, handing Lilith a very cute backpack and saying, "Miss, everything is ready. Look, the rabbit's face is puffed up, isn't it?" Lilith, exceedingly happy, thought it was adorable. The maids offered to carry her to the study. Lilith nodded, yes, I'd like that. She thought to herself, it's time to start Chesier's rescue mission. I can't delay any longer. Suddenly, she called out to the maid, sister, wait. Where's the infirmary? The scene changed to the doctor, still drowsy, blinking as he came out to see who it was. He immediately woke up when he saw the person in front of him. Who is this? Could it be the princess? Lilith nodded, yes, that's right. My name is Lilith. Pleased to meet you, Flynn. The doctor asked in surprise, how do you know my name? I haven't had a chance to introduce myself. Lilith replied, she said that Flynn is a very smart doctor. She said that if I go to see Flynn when I'm sick, I'll get better right away. Lilith smirked, then became flustered. Ha, that's right, I'm quite competent. But did you come here because you're not feeling well? Lilith smiled brightly, holding out the flowers in her hand, and said, no, I just wanted to say hello. This is a present. The spring fragrance is so pleasant. So I picked flowers from the garden. The doctor was touched, thank you, princess. He hurriedly turned around, muttering, the infirmary is a bit gloomy, but it will look beautiful if I put these flowers in a vase. Let's see, a suitable vase. At that moment, Lilith spoke, by the way, Flynn, do you have fairy tears here? The doctor paused, fairy tears. Ah, do you mean salvation? Lilith nodded immediately, yes, that's right. The doctor said, we have it here. Do you need it? Lilith replied, they say it's a very precious medicine. Could I also have some? The doctor said, as a rare and mysterious medicinal herb, salvation is under the exclusive control of the royal family to ensure limited circulation. It is also awarded once a month to some families. Permitted by the emperor. As a direct descendant of the Rubinstein family, you are certainly eligible, young lady. Lilith happily replied, ah, I see. I read in a book that it was something really good. Can you give me some? I want to make tea for my father. The doctor was deeply moved, oh my, what a little angel. The princess wants to make tea for her father. Of course, I'll give you some. Just write your name here. Please come back anytime. Lilith immediately accepted and replied, thank you. She quickly signed her name. And said to herself, I'm ready. The next problem, now, how do I sneak out? Children need a guardian to go out in spring. If I ask to go out, I might be dragged right back inside. In that case, who would be strong enough to sneak me out and protect me while I'm outside? Jetty and June, no good. My personal guards, no good. Sir Louis, who is supposed to be the ace of the Rubinstein Private Legion. No good. The answer is. At this moment, her two older brothers appeared and suggested, let's go play together when we are done with our studies. In Lilith's mind, she already had the answer to her previous question. My older brothers. Those twins are talented. They graduated from the training academy and unlocked their abilities. Moreover, their rank is DOS. In this family, they are the strongest after father. The first challenge is to convince these twins to leave. At this moment, the little girl lay down on the bed and complained, I'm too tired to play. I'm hungry. Hearing this, her brother suggested, then let's go to the dining room. Lilith replied, the food there isn't good. Her brother scratched his head in confusion, so what should we do? Is there anything you want to eat? Lilith cunningly replied, yes, but it's not here. It's the food we used to eat when I lived with father in the old house. The two brothers nodded in disgust, I understand. That must be commoners' food, right? Should we ask the chef to make it? Are you stupid? How would a noble family's chef know what commoners eat? So what do we do now? Well, we could go out to eat, couldn't we, Lilith? Should we go to a commoner's restaurant? Lilith smiled inwardly upon hearing this is going too smoothly. She pretended to ask, will the adults allow us to do that? Her brother nodded, "You're right. If we tell father that we are going to a commoner's restaurant, we'll get scolded terribly." Her brother started thinking for a while. Lilith tried to urge him on with a cute tone, "Brother, Lilith is hungry." Her brother immediately indulged her, "Oh, then let's sneak out." A moment later, Lilith crawled through the hole under her brother's worried gaze. "Lilith, are you okay?" The only way to leave unnoticed, without guards or maids, is through this brilliant plan. It's the plan that Captain Theo came up with, and it's now being executed. The two brothers argued again. "Why didn't you make the hole bigger, Theo? You're so stupid. A bigger hole would be too noticeable." At this moment, Lilith was delighted. "I successfully crawled through the dog hole, appearing before my two brothers." Her thoughtful brother dusted off the dirt on her. "All right, let's go, the three of us." Suddenly, at this moment, her brother felt unwell. Lilith asked in a panic, "What's wrong, brother? Are you all right?" Her brother held his head, saying, No. I'm fine." Seeing this, his younger brother was also worried. "What? Again? Are you sure you're not causing trouble by going out like this? Why don't you go inside and rest?" Her older brother chuckled, "No, I'm fine." "Really?" "Usually, about 5 days after getting a headache like this, it happens." Lilith was startled and remembered, "Oh, that's right, Theo has a rare disease." So, he just said it happens 5 days later, meaning he's talking about a seizure, right? The role of one of the twins, who is destined to die in the original story. 1. A stepping stone for Cheser's growth. 2. A way to stir the reader's hearts. His meaning of existence is to gently heal Cheser, whose heart has closed off after years of abuse, and then leave the stage after he has fulfilled his purpose. The author is so cruel. Theo's illness is called mana clash. It's a rare disease where divine energy and magical energy clash within his body, causing periodic seizures. Theo will die next spring, after he is knighted at the age of 16. In short, he's living on borrowed time. At this moment, Theo smiled and asked Lilith, "Shall we go now, Lilith? Why is your face like that? Are you hurt?" Lilith, startled, regained her composure. "Not at all." She thought sadly, "Brother, please, don't be so kind to me anymore." Although the disease is said to be incurable, there is actually a way to counteract mana clash. Recorded in an ancient text. It mentions something called the saint's heart. Of course, it's a metaphorical phrase, and no one knows exactly what it refers to. In the end, Cheser figured out its meaning. After Theo's death, Cheser, knowing it was meaningless, became obsessed with interpreting the ancient text. He eventually found the saint's heart and placed it on Theo's grave. Cheser in the original story went through so much to find it. There's no way I can find it that easily. Wait a minute. Am I an idiot? I already know what it is. Lilith is a devoted reader, who has read the original story multiple times. She became joyful, thinking, "Save him. I can do it. He has endured immense pain during every seizure, but now he won't have to suffer it anymore." Seeing his sister like that, Theo asked, "What did you just say, Lilith?" Lilith excitedly waved her hands, immersed in her reasoning. She suggested, "Take me out and buy me something pretty." Theo kindly agreed, "Sure, I'll buy you anything." Very quickly, they arrived in town together. Lilith happily pointed, "I want to go there too." Willie Duncan's grocery, owned by a former magic swordsman and his attendant. The sign doesn't look very trustworthy, but among the shops in the area, this is the biggest. They'll probably have it. I'm sure they'll have the saint's heart. At this moment, the owner cheerfully asked, "You look like nobles. What brings you here?" The two brothers looked at each other hesitantly. Only Lilith was busy searching with her eyes. She quickly found her target. "That's it." Lilith pointed at an object and spoke up, "It's so pretty. I want this." The three men were stunned. Lilith happily exclaimed, "The shimmering purple sparkles. It's mesmerizing. It really looks like the stars in the night sky." The owner chuckled, "Ha ha, young lady, that's a mana beast core. It was taken from the body of a slain mana beast. It's very unsuitable as a toy for a noble lady. Lilith firmly said, I want to buy it. Her brother immediately refused, no, absolutely not. It's very dangerous. Lilith wondered, why? How is it dangerous? Her brother explained, mana constantly leaks from the core. If you carry it around, you'll become addicted to it. Only those who can control mana can handle something like this. The owner chimed in, yes, that's right. Even this isn't made of ordinary glass. It's crafted with special block glass, which has the effect of partially sealing the mana. Lilith put her hands on her hips and confidently said, it's okay. I can handle it too. Her brother asked suspiciously, what are you talking about? You haven't even been to the training academy yet. Kid. Lilith affirmed, I'm telling you, I can handle it. Her brother was firm with her, no means no. Stop whining. Lilith pursed her lips and thought, it's 5 days until the next seizure. If I don't get this now, I won't have another chance to get it without being suspicious. I know how to avoid the pain. I don't want him to suffer it. There's no other choice. It's time to use my ultimate move. She fell back onto the ground, declaring, if you don't buy this for me, I won't leave. Time to use the whining privilege. Only children can do this. A moment later, item purchased. 6 glass block low-grade monster core successfully obtained by Lilith. The two brothers were still whispering, Mother will kill you. Don't use such vulgar language. Lilith happily said to the two of them, thank you, brother. It's so beautiful. Theo asked her, you like it? Lilith smiled, yes, my brother is the best. Leon, from afar, thought to himself, he's been tricked. Very quickly, the three arrived at number 13th Street, Valentin District, Rico's restaurant. The two brothers asked suspiciously, Lilith, are you serious? Did you really eat things like this when you lived in Xenon? Are they actually good? Lilith affirmed, very delicious. She thought to herself, this is the Rico's restaurant that father visited in the original story. Looks like I found it without any trouble. Ho ho, I have the best memory. Her brother raised his hand to call the owner. He requested, give me everything on the menu. I'll pay double, so please pay attention to the cooking. My little sister is very excited. The owner smiled, yes, I understand. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Lilith suddenly called out, sister, wait. Hearing this, her brother quietly admonished her, hey, Lilith, hey, you shouldn't speak loudly to commoners when we're out like this. Theo said, Leon, don't be so strict. Leon thought that Lilith hadn't adapted well yet, she needs to adapt quickly. If she makes a mistake in front of grandfather later, she'll get scolded. At this moment, the little girl reached into her pocket. She took out a gold coin and gave it to the owner. It turned out this place was disguised as an ordinary restaurant. Lilith knew it wasn't on the menu. A secret information guild called Red Kite. Lilith used a specific term to ask the owner if they had pickled herring. Facing the little girl, the owner was a little surprised. Then he bowed his head and said, we don't sell that dish separately, but we will prepare it if you request it. Do you have any specific recipe you would like? Lilith happily replied, yes. Can I talk while watching you cook? So the two went into the kitchen together. The owner went down to the basement, calling out, Rico, there's a customer looking for you. Lilith was led to a room. The door quickly opened slightly. A person who deeply hated those with abilities, the nobles, and the royal family. The head of the Red Kite Information Guild, Rico. He wore a mask, smiled eerily at Lilith, and said, please, have a seat. Lilith said, thank you, and sat down. She sensed, the atmosphere is so scary. Then she sighed and said, please wait a moment. I'm a little nervous, you see. Rico asked how Lilith knew about this place. Lilith shyly asked back, are you curious about that? I can answer, but. Principle of transaction. Number 1, you have to pay to buy information. If you're curious, then give me useful information. Not money, but information equivalent to the information I'm looking for. Rico replied, I see. Then I don't need to know it. I take payment up front. So, let's get down to business. If you need any information, please pay the transaction fee first. Lilith immediately asked, Duke Enoch Robenstein, who disappeared 7 years ago, has returned to the capital. Do you know about that? Rico replied, I do. Lilith smiled and continued, so you already knew. Then one more thing. I'm his daughter, 7-year-old Lilith Robenstein. Rico nodded, I also know that. Did you come here to play a prank? Lilith quickly explained, no, not at all. Actually, I didn't come here to buy information. I came here to ask you for a favor. Regarding information, I already know everything I need to know. For example, you have a son you're hiding from Marquis Onyx. You must be surprised. This is quite exclusive information. Rico nodded, yes, I'm indeed surprised. The 7-year-old daughter of Duke Robenstein, who has lived in Xenon all her life without knowing her identity, came to the capital for the first time about 4 days ago. So I wonder how you learned that fact, and I'm very curious about your purpose in meeting me. I also heard that the tower personally came to test your ability because you are a talented individual. Lilith was slightly surprised, he really knows everything. She didn't beat around the bush and said directly, anyway, I want to save that child. The Marquis secret I just told you, pass it on anonymously to anyone who can save your son. Rico asked back, so you need a messenger. Who is the recipient? Lilith replied, my father. Rico asked incredulously, excuse me, your father? You mean Duke Enoch Robenstein? Lilith nodded, yes. All my father knows now is his face, so it will take time to find him. My father has returned to the capital after a long time, that's why he doesn't really know how things work here. And he has to take care of family matters, and soon he has to return to the knighthood. Rico rested his chin on his hand and said in astonishment, there's no way a 7-year-old would come to see me on their own. I'm not sure if this is the Duke's instruction. Lilith immediately replied, no, I came here alone. My father doesn't know anything. Rico chuckled, yes, of course. That's why you asked me to send the information anonymously, because he wouldn't know. Where to begin? You can tell him yourself, so why go through all this trouble? Lilith was silent for a moment. Then said, after telling him, I'll have to explain how I know this. Rico became even more interested and laughed, aha. It seems you have a little secret, young lady. You can't carelessly reveal it, but you also don't want to hide it from your father. Lilith replied with satisfaction, exactly. So, I'm looking for a substitute here. Simply put. Rico replied, it's because it's a little suspicious, right? He also thought for a moment, then said, I understand. Should I spread the news about Onyx's descendant and an illegitimate child to Duke Enoch Robenstein? Lilith excitedly replied, yes, that's enough. At this moment, Rico continued, then. In exchange for sending this message to the Duke, tell me what your true identity is. I want to know more about you. And how did you find out this information? Lilith muttered, wondering, isn't it all for profit? If you hide your name and relay this information, he'll tell you my secret. He probably doesn't know me very well. I haven't been in business for just a day or two. Hearing this, Rico couldn't help but laugh. Lilith continued, later on, I'll have a lot of secrets I want to share with my father. I've brought a gift with the meaning of continuing our transactions in the future. Rico immediately said, I'm sorry, but I only deal in information. Lilith affirmed, it's not money. I said there's nothing I don't know. I know that you, Rico, have earned quite a bit of money. Just open it. You'll be very pleased. Rico slowly opened it. Then asked, "What is this?" Lilith immediately said, "This is the universal antidote, salvation. It can cure all illnesses." Rico held his head and laughed derisively. "Until now, I've always been left behind by others, but this is the first time I've been able to keep up with them. What are you planning? How did the Duke find out my secret? Answer me." Lilith trembled and said, "My father doesn't know anything, so sit down, calmly sit down and talk. Just talk. I'll handle it myself, so you don't need to help me." At this moment, Rico suddenly cut his hand, letting fresh blood drip down. Then he suddenly slammed his hand on the table, frightening Lilith to death. Rico asked again, "You know what this is, right? That's why you took it out. Those damn royals are hoarding this stuff. Even hundreds of millions aren't enough to buy it." As Rico spoke, he used the salvation Lilith had just given him to heal his wound. "Your family is granted special favors, but you won't avoid punishment if you recklessly trade it outside." Lilith scratched her head, feigning ignorance. Is that so? Well then, Rico, as long as you use it carefully and don't get caught, it'll be fine." "Well then, if everything is done, I'll excuse myself." Rico's voice froze. "Lilith, please stop right there." He slowly walked towards her. Lilith screamed in fear, "Wait a minute, you don't need to show me your face, you." Rico said softly, "Please, look at me." Lilith peeked with one eye and asked, "You won't kill me without a reason, right?" Rico replied, "I never break the rules when making a deal. I'll always return something equivalent to what I've received." Behind the mask, it turned out to be a handsome young man. He used his face to exchange secrets with Lilith. Today's transaction was established between the two. Outside, the sky had turned to dusk. The whispers of two people echoed, "You're not like yourself at all, Rico. What are you really thinking? Why let that little girl see your face?" Rico asked, "The children who are at the Rubenstein house, our people, who are they?" The owner replied, "The two J sisters." Rico said, "Pass the information about Onyx's descendant and the illegitimate child to Enoch Rubenstein." The owner asked in surprise, "Rico, are you serious?" Lilith nodded, "Right, you know how important salvation is to me." The owner replied, I know, but we have to be careful." "Who is he?" "Even your sister, Annie, knows what kind of person he is. He even put on a grand show to see that girl off. The Duke is definitely plotting something. Have you forgotten? Your sister is suffering because of magic." Rico replied, "Think about that little girl's request. It's just forwarding Count Onyx's secret to her father. That's why she came to me." He remembered Lilith's expression as he said, "One dose of antidote isn't enough, is it? Because you'll need more than that, so just trust me." "Since we are friends anyway," Rico chuckled softly, then continued, "She wants to give me the antidote. So I'll trust her just this once. I don't know if that will actually happen or not. The savior I've been waiting for all this time." At this moment, Lilith was lying happily on the bed and thinking, finding Rico was such a good idea. Rico told Lilith, "If you return home, we will contact you through the guild member stationed at Duke Rubenstein's mansion." Lilith reasoned inwardly, probably one of the servants. "If I want to keep in touch with Rico, it will be easier if he becomes my personal bodyguard. I've become very close with Jetty and Jun." At this moment, the maid came over to praise her. "Oh my, our lady draws so beautifully. Is this a jellyfish?" "Have you ever seen a jellyfish, miss?" Lilith explained, "This is my father." The maid was startled, "Really?" "Oh, now that I look at it again, I see that it really does resemble the Duke. Very much so. Ho ho, my lady. May I draw a picture of this?" Lilith nodded in agreement, "Yes." So the maid quickly bent down and started drawing with rustling sounds. "Wow, your drawing is amazing," Lilith complimented the maid. "Who is this?" The maid replied, "She's my friend. Her name is Raquel. The short-haired maid also suddenly appeared and said, "She's my friend too. Raquel is also working as a maid here. She's a descendant of Onyx." Lilith was startled and wondered, why is Marquis Onyx here? A thought flashed through Lilith's mind. Could it be these two? She couldn't help but call out, "Sister, sister, both of you. Please help me a lot in the future, okay?" The two maids immediately replied, "Of course, miss." On this side, Enoch was sitting silently in thought. "A week ago, I met a boy on the island. Being treated like a lowly person on the island has become commonplace, but I was particularly concerned about that boy. However, he is Marquis Onyx's illegitimate child." The anonymous test paper only had the letter L on it, leaving Enoch extremely perplexed. "I'm not sure who it is, but if the information about the boy being abused is true, I have to find him quickly. Damn it, why does it have to be Onyx?" Coincidentally, Enoch did not have any close relationship with Marquis Onyx. He thought to himself, "I need to figure out a way to visit naturally as soon as possible." Just then, the door opened and a familiar voice called out, "Father." Enoch quickly put away the letter. "My princess. My dear, are your classes over?" Lilith said cheerfully, "Yes. Today was my first art class, and it was so much fun. The teacher told me about famous sculptors and their artwork. Do you know this? It's a piece of art created by a sculptor named Lindell, and it's very famous. It's called Heaven's Gate, and it looks so beautiful. I really want to meet that sculptor in person, but I guess that's not possible, is it?" Hearing this, Enoch asked, "Why not? If it's a famous work of art, it should be at the St. John Art Museum. Right? I can take you there." Lilith pouted, "No, it's not there. My teacher asked, but they mentioned Marquis Onyx. He's the one who bought it." Enoch wondered in surprise, are they saying that artwork is at his house? He happily told Lilith, "You can see it." Lilith pretended to be excited, "Really? But how?" Enoch replied, "I'll try contacting him. Let's just visit and check it out." The scene quickly changed to a person bowing. "Welcome, Duke Rubinstein." Enoch said politely, "Thank you for kindly welcoming me despite the sudden request. My daughter really wanted to see that artwork." Marquis Onyx said, "It's no trouble at all. I was happy to receive your letter. This is my wife and our son, Jonathan." His wife began to bow in greeting. The child also bowed politely. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Duke Rubinstein. I am Jonathan Onyx." Lilith cursed inwardly, "So it's you, the infamous Mr. X." Jonathan came to shake Lilith's hand, "And it is also an honor to meet the lovely young miss." Lilith feigned sweetness, "The pleasure is all mine." Enoch spoke up from behind, "My daughter seems to like your son." Lilith inwardly groaned, "That's not it at all." Marquis Onyx laughed, furthering the misunderstanding, "What an honor. The two of you really suit each other." The mother instructed, "Treat the princess well. We'll be seeing each other often in the future. We never know what the future holds, do we?" At this moment, Jonathan stepped forward and suggested, "If you don't mind, may I introduce the mansion's artworks to the princess?" Lilith nodded, "Yes, I really want to see Heaven's Gate." Marquis Onyx said, "All right, Jonathan. Sounds good. I've trained the servants to enhance the experience of this place." Lilith politely approached the servants and said, "Hello." Jonathan thought, there's no need to greet the servants like that. Lilith, unconcerned, said to them, "Please take good care of me. I'm here to see Heaven's Gate. Please show it to me." The servants happily agreed, "Yes, miss." The two held hands and walked, seemingly carrying out some secret transaction. Lilith thought to herself, "I wonder if the location of the room is written on this piece of paper. Well, let's go inside and see the painting." Jonathan stood aside smugly thinking, just as father said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. This time, I must impress the Duke somehow. My rank is octa-level cheser. So personal connections are very important. At this moment, Lilith suddenly shouted, "It's so magical." Jonathan immediately began to explain, "Miss, so that's the meaning behind this artwork. Verdun, a masterpiece from the same era as Lindell." He didn't finish his sentence before Lilith ran off somewhere else. Jonathan was extremely annoyed and cursed inwardly, "Damn it, I've been ignored this whole time. I even showed her Heaven's Gate which she wanted to see, but there's no appreciation at all. If I knew this would happen, I wouldn't have been so polite. I'm not someone who appreciates art, but I also have to take care of her, oh my God. No, calm down, calm down. This girl can change my life." Thinking this, he forced a smile, "Miss, shall we go to the next exhibition room?" But when he turned around, the young miss was no longer there. This made Jonathan furious, damn it. What a stubborn, disobedient girl. Lilith was currently following the instructions. There's a side door at the end of the third-floor exhibition hall in the annex. That door leads to a secret passage underground. The child is on the second basement floor, in the last room. At this moment, Cheshire was trembling, lying on the dirty floor. Whispers kept ringing in his ears, "Mother is tired of running away like this. It would be better to die together." Cheshire. The nightmare frightened the boy, and he sat up abruptly. "If you approach the Duke, Father won't let you live. It will be a disgrace if your existence is known to him." Cheshire thought to himself, "If so, then in the end, I just have to die. Really, is there no way out of this hell besides death? Will I ever feel such warmth again? If God is real, please send me a little angel. Please get me out of this hell. I want to live." Just then, the door in front of Cheshire was flung open by Lilith. The little girl, like a small angel, declared resolutely, "Cheshire, I'll get you out of here." Cheshire was surprised, "How did you get here?" Lilith froze, unsure how to answer. But then she suddenly saw Cheshire's pitiful bruised eyes. She hesitantly approached him. "We need to hurry." She thought to herself, "I was wrong. So stupid. The first time I met you, I should have ignored everything and let Father bring me here. For you, every minute, every second here must have been like hell. The past week has been full of happiness for me." Lilith said tearfully, "I'm sorry." Cheshire wondered what she was apologizing for. "Why are you crying?" Lilith reached up and wiped her tears. Then she extended her hand towards Cheshire and said, "Let's go, Cheshire." Cheshire was surprised and thought to himself, "She wants me to go outside. Leave here. Who is she really? How can she get me out of this hell? Who are you?" Lilith replied, "Lilith." Cheshire asked seriously, "I didn't ask for your name." Lilith said sincerely, "After we get out safely, I'll explain. Now, let's get out of here. Please, trust me just this once. Wherever we go, it'll be better than this hell." Cheshire listened to her silently. He also felt, "That's right. Even if it's not heaven, it's okay. Because it will definitely be better than this hell. I didn't expect you to take my hand so easily." He shyly placed his hand on Lilith's and said, "You told me to take it." Lilith nodded and asked, "You'll come with me, right?" Truly relieved, she smiled and said, "I'm really, really sorry I was late. From now on, no one will be able to hurt you. I'll use this cane to teach them a lesson." Cheshire wondered, "How can you? You're much smaller than me." Puffing and panting sounds echoed through the old hallway. Lilith wearily complained inwardly, "Lyris, please save me. With my short legs, I had to climb up from the second basement floor. I'm really tired. Are we here?" Seeing Cheshire suddenly stop, she asked worriedly, "What's wrong? Is someone there?" Cheshire turned his head and replied, "No. But from this point on, there will be servants." Lilith said unconcernedly, "It's okay. Even if we get caught, it's not a big deal, but as long as we don't get caught, everything is fine. Come on." Cheshire looked at the girl in front of him in surprise. Lilith remembered, the key will be retrieved if it's left on the second window frame along the corridor in the annex. She quickly found it. But then she sadly realized she was too short. She couldn't reach it with her hand. At this moment, Cheser stepped forward and asked, "Are you going to leave it on the window frame?" Lilith nodded, "Yes, that's right." Cheser easily helped place the key. They worked really well together, continuing to run. The exit door was right in front of their eyes. On this side, Jonathan was stomping his feet in frustration. No, where did she really go? Lilith and Cheser stopped, unexpectedly encountering Jonathan ahead. He was surprised. What? This bastard, how could he? Lilith, hiding behind Cheser, spoke up, "Oh, hello. Shouldn't we quickly go back to the room?" Lilith pushed Cheser and said, "Run." Jonathan immediately instructed the servants, catch that bastard quickly." Lilith thought she had to seize this opportunity. She ran away with the servants. Unexpectedly, Jonathan grabbed her and said, "Princess, please stay here." Lilith clutched her neck in pain and cried, choking. Jonathan immediately panicked, "I'm sorry. But, wait. Can you talk to me for a bit?" Lilith thought to herself, if Cheser wants to escape, now's the time. Hurry up. She suddenly kicked Jonathan's leg again. Then, she created a situation. Thud. She fell to the ground. She cursed inwardly, that cruel villain, treating a child like that. Go, just keep running. With the same cold ruthlessness, as in the original story, I told him to leave me and go. The servants were not having an easy time chasing Jonathan. Lilith gasped, "Huh? So fast?" Jonathan missed a punch at Cheser, who was returning to the spot, and asked, "Can't you go back to your room?" He missed and fell down himself. Seeing Jonathan return, Lilith angrily scolded, "Idiot. I told you to go ahead. Anyway, you can't escape with me." To Lilith's surprise. What is this? Can he teleport? Cheser told her, "Let's run." Lilith was astonished, wondering, what is this? That's right, it's not teleportation. The original work focuses all abilities on the two main characters. According to Cheser's fifth setting. Surprisingly, this rogue character can manipulate time density. If he wants, the opponent's movements will appear in slow motion. Even my father and Cheser, how can they fail with such overpowered characters on both sides? Ha. Get out of the way, my work here is done, all that's left is just a bit. At the same time, Marquis Onyx set down his teacup and said, at that time, there were so many rumors. Those who didn't understand the Duke's circumstances said quite a lot. Is that so? But parents with children will surely understand how, and in what state of mind the Duke welcomed the princess 7 years ago. Enoch replied politely, I understand. Thank you for your understanding. He thought to himself, there's no trace of the child's presence at all. Maybe he's in a remote and isolated room. Or, perhaps something has gone wrong. But is that child the boy I just saw earlier? Marquis Onyx replied awkwardly, yes, that's right. Our family has always had very few children. Enoch inwardly assessed him, quite a predictable reaction. I should probably get closer to that secluded room. So he stood up and suggested, I can also take a look around the exhibition rooms, right? Marquis Onyx politely gestured, I will personally guide you. At this moment, Lilith's panicked voice rang out, Father. Along with it came Jonathan's voice, wait a minute, princess, please. Lilith arrived, leading Cheser by the hand, and waved, calling, Father. Do you remember this boy? It seems the Count invited him too. Marquis Onyx's face turned pale when he saw Cheser and he asked, yes, but why are you here? Enoch thought to himself, shouldn't you have hidden him carefully? A 7-year-old child found him. Lilith put on an innocent look and said, Father, the Marquis's house is so big, isn't it? It has so many rooms. I wandered around and met this boy. Enoch blinked and looked at the boy. He noticed his extremely pitiful and tattered current state. Marquis Onyx was panicking and gritting his teeth, damn it. Listening to the father and daughter talking to each other, where did you meet the boy? In a room in the basement. But it seems the Marquis hasn't cleaned the basement. His room was dark, smelly, and there were even rats. So gross. Hearing this, Enoch stood up and asked, right. Marquis Onyx hesitantly spoke up, Duke, I mean, that boy is actually, like. Lilith interrupted, looks a lot like you, Marquis. This is the illegitimate child that the Marquis has been hiding. Enoch said, Marquis, let's talk privately. A while later, Lilith sat on a chair with Cheshire, thinking to herself, surely, father will handle everything properly, right? So, that's why Raquel gave me the ointment. The ointment that came with that note. She nudged Cheshire and said, lower your head. Cheshire also spoke up, your lips are chapped. Lilith wagged her finger, it's okay. It doesn't hurt that much. Lilith gestured as if she wanted to apply the ointment to Cheshire's wound-covered body. He obediently let her apply the ointment. Lilith said, earlier, thank you for not abandoning me and even taking me with you. But why did you keep getting hit even though you could dodge? Didn't you want to talk to me? At this moment, Cheshire replied, if I dodged it, would anything change? It would only make them angrier. Even if I ran away, there's nowhere to go. If I don't want to starve on the streets, I have no choice but to endure and live. In the house, even if I get beaten. Lilith was startled to realize, no matter how good his abilities are, he's still only 11 years old. Moreover, without any legal status, it's clearly very difficult to survive without a guardian. In this miserable empire. She said softly, you're right. I'm sorry. I said something really stupid. Cheshire asked, is your father Duke Rubenstein? Lilith nodded, yes, that's right. Did you know? Cheshire replied, I heard Jonathan say so. He mentioned being close to your father. Lilith chuckled, that's ridiculous. That's wishful thinking. My father must be crazy to be close to someone who hits children. My father brought me here today because he wanted me to see the artworks on display. But the real reason I came here today wasn't for those artworks. It was for you. I came to save you. A friend told me you were here. It was Raquel. Cheshire suddenly asked, why did you look for me? Do you know who I am? Lilith asked in a panic, what's going on? Don't you remember me? We met last time. You remember everything, but are pretending not to, huh? Hey, Cheshire, I've been thinking about you since then. I wanted to see you again. Cheshire asked, why? Lilith sighed and replied, well, it's just that simple. Anyone can like someone without a reason. I really like you. Cheshire's face went blank upon hearing this. Then he said, now I understand. You see me as a toy, don't you? So you'll feed me and let me sleep at your house, right? Lilith froze in place, asking back, what? What are you talking about? How can a person be a toy? I'll be friends with you. Cheshire turned away and replied, I'm the Duke's daughter. How can we be friends? Lilith affirmed, we can. Don't you like that? Cheshire replied in a low voice, no. At this moment, the door behind them opened. Enoch walked over and called his daughter. Lilith happily ran towards him and called, Father. Enoch stared at the boy in front of him. Making the boy extremely nervous, he couldn't help but gulp. Enoch said to the two children, let's go home. Very quickly, they returned to the castle. In front of Lilith's room, Enoch signaled the two children to be quiet. I'll talk to your grandfather first, then come back. Until then, be quiet and don't let anyone know. At this time, the two older brothers also happened to appear. They wondered, who is this child? Lilith excitedly replied, brothers, say hello to him, he is Cheshire. Enoch smiled from behind and said, hello, princes, from today, Lilith's friend will stay here, his name is Cheshire. One brother asked in surprise, what? He lives here. Which noble family does he belong to? Enoch replied, he's a commoner, that's how it is now. The two brothers stared at the newcomer. The look made Cheshire freeze, quickly turning away to avoid it. Enoch spoke again. I will talk to your grandfather about Lilith's friend staying here, and will be back later. So, don't tell anyone until then, and play quietly. Leon glanced at Lilith holding Cheshire's hand. Then hurriedly pulled her away, and asked, Hey, kid, you said you'd go out with me to catch spiders today. Lilith happily nodded yes. Cheshire, are you coming too? Brother Leon asked her jealously, didn't we plan to do it together? Lilith immediately replied, but Cheshire can come too. She thought to herself, that's weird, why is Leon acting like this? In the original story, when they met, they were supposed to become close, why are they so hostile now? Theo politely smiled and asked, should we greet each other? They said your name is Cheshire, I'm Theo Antris, 12 years old. While speaking, Theo's expression suddenly froze. Lilith curiously asked, what's wrong, brother? Theo replied, oh, it's nothing. Leon crossed his arms and said disdainfully, there's a smell. From him. Lilith was surprised, huh? I don't smell anything. The unintentional words made Cheshire unconsciously lower his head. At this moment, Enoch appeared behind him and patted the boy on the shoulder. Ago, all right, Cheshire, let's take a bath with me. You guys go play with Lilith first. At this time, Lilith turned around, slightly annoyed. She asked Leon, brother, what's going on between you and Cheshire? You keep staring at him in a scary way, and you said he smells too. Leon replied, well, he does smell. Lilith disagreed, however, it's not right to say it out loud like that. Leon angrily asked, what does that have to do with anything? I'm just saying that because he actually stinks. Theo intervened between the two, suggesting, both of you stop. That's right, Lilith, it doesn't matter. Leon talks like that to anyone. Really? Lilith pouted, that's a bad habit. Don't do that to Cheshire. At this time, Leon angrily asked Lilith, hey, are you seriously taking his side now? Lilith asked blankly, what are you talking about? What do you mean by taking his side? Leon angrily replied, you said you were going to see the artwork, and then suddenly brought a friend home. Is he really going to live here? Lilith nodded, yeah, Cheshire has nowhere else to go. If you have a problem, you should talk to me. Well, go ahead. Brother, Leon angrily brushed past and yelled, I don't know. The two siblings stood frozen in place. In the end, why did this happen? Earlier, 3 said to Enoch, in that case, if the princess gets bored in the future, or if the boy is no longer useful, then make sure to handle it cleanly so that no ridiculous stories get out. Nobles like us. You know how important reputation is. Enoch silently looked at Cheshire's wounded body. The sound of running water was very relaxing. Enoch chuckled refreshingly, it's been a while since I've done this. My daughter really doesn't like it when I tell her to bathe with me. She's growing up fast, so she's been bathing by herself since last year. Cheshire asked in surprise, you two used to bathe together before? Enoch nodded, really? He thoughtfully washed Cheshire's hair. Cheshire suddenly called him, sir. Didn't you say you were just going to kill me? Enoch asked back in surprise, what? Cheshire replied, I know everything. I've lived this long only thanks to your daughter. I've seen many commoners taken in by nobles to live with them. Anyway, if they are hated, they will be kicked out and killed. I have one thing to ask you. Although I know this is inconvenient, please pay me a little. When I'm old enough to find work outside, as soon as possible, I'll leave and live quietly without attracting attention. Enoch was surprised and thought to himself, you've prepared these words for a long time, haven't you? You're just an 11-year-old child, he called, Cheshire. Children don't need to work. I didn't bring you here to pay you or order you around, nor to please my daughter. If you had somewhere to go, I would have let you go. Cheshire wondered, why are you being so nice to me? Enoch replied, I suppose even if it weren't you, I wouldn't be able to ignore it, neither I nor my daughter could. Even so, if you still feel uncomfortable or suspicious of me, do you have something you want to ask me? On this side, grandfather said in a low voice, I understand, get out. Enoch asked back in surprise, that's it? Grandfather also asked, "So what more do you want?" Enoch replied, "No, after disappearing for 7 years and causing so much trouble, now coming back and saying things that hurt your heart, yet you agree so easily. However, I'm glad you can look at your actions objectively. I was worried and prepared to persuade you, thinking that you would object." Grandfather replied, "You say persuade, but in reality, you will still do whatever you want, right? Since I didn't want a meaningless argument, I told you to decide for yourself. Really, you've become much more tolerant, haven't you? When Enoch was young, we used to argue a lot. How difficult it was to make your son, who always questioned the class system, understand. Fortunately, Enoch reconciled and finally grew up according to the rules. However, it never really grasped the absurdity of the class system and the aristocratic society full of self-esteem. It was simply a child's dutiful, desired obedience to his father." Grandfather continued, "I always felt guilty about that, and I still regret it immensely. Forcing my child to do my bidding, that's what I truly regret. I shouldn't have done that. If I knew the result would be 7 years of disappearance." Hearing his father say that, Enoch smiled happily. "I'm more grateful for your decision at that time than anyone else. If I had been more stubborn at that time and actually won against you. Wow, that's scary. Our princess wouldn't be in this world anymore. Thank you, Father, sincerely. Since Lilith was born, my world has changed. For the first time, I felt life was worth living. Seeing her grow up every day, I understood what happiness is. I also want to create a better world for her, although it's not an easy thing to do." Grandfather interrupted, "There's nothing you can't do. I'm old now, all that's left is to step into the grave, so I won't interfere with what you want to do anymore. It's still not too late, do whatever you want, even if you sell the family or destroy everything, this old man won't get in your way." Enoch was touched to hear his father say that. Then both father and son laughed loudly, "Ha ha. Ha ha," Lilith thought to herself, "is this a buff for the main character? Drawing skills, really remarkable. Who can look at a comic book and create such a surreal jellyfish? At least buff reasonably. I'm not the main character, so I really feel sorry for myself." Cheshire asked Lilith, "Why are you covering it up? Everything is clear. But you said to draw a jellyfish, why didn't you draw it?" "Huh?" Lilith asked, "Isn't this a jellyfish?" Cheshire asked Lilith back, "Isn't that your father?" Lilith was extremely happy, "Yeah, like my father." Cheshire nodded again in confirmation, "Yeah." Lilith was touched, "Oh my God, that's right, my painting, the one everyone keeps saying looks like a jellyfish. Ha ha, what a relief. So, can I give this painting to father?" Cheshire remembered Enoch's words, "My daughter is very talented, so she'll have to go to the training center soon. I'm worried about sending her alone, but if you go with her, I'll feel more at ease." Cheshire immediately refused, "I can't go because I have no status." Lilith smiled and replied, "Don't worry about that, I'll be your guarantor, then you can register now." Cheshire was surprised, "What? Why? Such a high-ranking person, someone called a noble above all other nobles, is truly a respectable person, why are you being so nice to me?" "Ah, maybe because of her. The one who is dearly loved by her father." At this time, Cheshire asked, "Do you like your father?" Lilith was surprised, "Huh? Why such a sudden question?" "Since he's my father, of course I like him." Looking at Cheshire's face, she thought to herself, or maybe not. She thought and continued, My father is someone everyone likes, so, I like him too, okay. My father is wonderful and kind, right?" Cheshire nodded, "Yes." Lilith asked again, "Then why don't you become my father's son?" Cheshire asked back in surprise, "What?" Lilith crossed her arms and said, "You really are the son of a bad father. Just because someone gave birth to you doesn't mean they are really a father, your place should be like this." Seeing Cheshire's expression, Lilith asked again, "Don't believe it. My father will definitely accept you as family." Cheshire said, "You don't have to do that. I don't need a family. I've drawn 10 pictures now, I can sleep now, right?" Seeing Cheshire get up, Lilith nodded slightly, "Oh, yes." Cheshire asked, Where is the servant's room? Lilith wondered, why the servant's room? So. The two children lay next to each other. Lilith said happily, "Good night." So it's Cheshire, being forced into bed. Lilith stared at the person next to her. She thought to herself, it seems like he's sleeping soundly. He probably won't wake up, right? Lilith gently wiped the medicine on Cheshire's face, the wounds healing wherever she wiped. Then she silently stared at the boy again. Remembering Cheshire's words earlier, "I don't need a family at all," she thought to herself, even though he says that. I know that Cheshire longs for family love more than anyone, abandoned by his mother and father, abused by his father. Listen, Cheshire, I'll tell you a very special secret, just for you. You are the main character of this world. The main character always faces trials, but whatever the trial, it will eventually pass, so that you don't have to suffer too much, I will help you, and then I will definitely become your family. Very quickly, Lilith breathed evenly and fell asleep. Only Cheshire lying next to her was wide awake. He thought to himself, what a strange child. Really strange. Saving someone who has no connection to her at all. I thought it was just a whim of nobles to care about commoners. Yes, that's right, just like a toy thrown away after people get tired of it. I've witnessed many commoners catch the eye of nobles. However, I was glad that I had a place to lie down without starving for a while, unless I wanted to die at the hands of my birth father or die elsewhere. I would take advantage of this noble lady's temporary concern. I will become your family. Why did she say that? Strange. I don't believe you. If you're going to throw me away, don't be nice to me. Very quickly, the door was opened by someone again. Enoch walked in, pulled the blanket over Cheshire and thought to himself, no, you should share the blanket. Why is our princess sleeping alone like this? This kid is good at drawing, isn't he? Let's see, Lilith's, is this the jellyfish? Not a jellyfish, but me? There are eyes and a nose. Ha ha, he chuckled when he saw the words, this is not father. Good night, our princess. Enoch gently placed a kiss on his little daughter's forehead. The next day, Lilith was sitting looking down at the yard. She spotted Cheshire sitting alone on a chair. She sighed to herself, he must be very bored. I wish I could play with him while studying. Oscar sprawled on the chair and said, so boring. Lilith pouted, then don't come. Oscar replied, I agreed to hold a special class once a week. I can't break my promise. Lilith thought to herself, he looks very bored, should I ask a question? She held out her notebook and said, I don't know this, can you show me? Oscar immediately exposed her. Lie, it's not that you don't know. Nonsense, don't you find it boring since you already know everything? Lilith replied, I don't know everything. Oscar replied, yeah, sure, if you say so. You'll be going to the training academy soon, right? Enlistment is mandatory at age 9, but anyone can enter from age 7. When is your birthday? Lilith replied, it's May 19th. Oscar replied, less than a month left. You might go see your mother, right? Lilith was surprised, mother? Why? Oscar laughed and asked, didn't your father tell you? Lilith thought to herself, I never thought much about it, and father always tried to cover it up, or ignore it. In the original, it only said that the daughter had died. There wasn't a single line about Enoch Rubinstein's wife. I really didn't think about it until now, mother. Lilith asked, does the master of the magic tower know my mother? Oscar nodded, of course, she's very famous. Lilith was curious, what kind of person is she? Oscar chuckled, you want to know? Judging by your reaction now, it seems like this is the first time you've heard about your mother, father too, and even the people in this family. Is there any reason why I should tell you? Lilith rolled her eyes, I'm curious, please tell me. Oscar replied, if so, I think I can tell you. Martian is Selena Ladendorf. She's known as a mage. She retired 5 years ago, and is currently a researcher at an ability training institute. Lilith was surprised, Martianess. Seeing her reaction, Oscar sighed and continued. After your father disappeared, she remarried to Marquis Lundendorf without looking back. Lilith lowered her head, I understand, remarried. Seeing this, Oscar laughed. That reaction, are you shocked? It seems like she doesn't care whether you live or die, right? Look at her remarrying, having children. And living well with another man, you can. Lilith replied coldly, no, I'm not shocked. Oscar was suspicious, really. Lilith bowed her head and sighed, yes, mother has her own life too, she's young and talented, so she should live and do what she wants. Oscar replied, well, that's true, she's a young and capable mage, from a good family. So, she married your father, who was the most successful at the time. However, isn't that too cruel? It could be anything with the husband, but you're the child she carried and gave birth to, Lilith replied. Father took me away and hid as soon as I was born. Right? Mother probably doesn't even know where I am, so how would she know? Oscar chuckled and said, how naive. Your mother is a mage, a talented young person, not even 30 years old. How could she have retired and be working comfortably at a training institute? The place you and your father ran away to, that woman told the emperor. In exchange for her retirement, moreover, she got a promise from the emperor that her son would not be drafted. Do you understand what I mean? She sold her own daughter, for her son. Lilith's eyes widened, so that's how it is, if that's true. In the original story, I was kidnapped, transferred to a training institute. After confirming my rank, I was locked up. He said that my mother is working at the training institute now. Then mother knows everything, that old process. The mother in the original witnessed everything. This is shocking, Oscar laughed and asked, now you're shocked, aren't you? Lilith nodded, yes, a little. Oscar's expression turned serious again. He said, after you arrive at the training institute, come to the magic tower immediately. I'll allow you to work early with the authority of this body. Lilith immediately turned away, sulking, why me? I don't like it. Oscar was surprised, what? Why? Lilith replied, I'll stay at home, why do I have to go there? Oscar was startled, if you don't enter the magic tower, you'll have to go to the battlefield, even if you're young, there's no mercy, young soldiers have to go and subdue demons with 100 teeth. Lilith retorted, however, I won't go, I don't want to be away from father. Oscar laughed, it's good to have something to believe in. Why? Did your father tell you not to do anything? He's letting you live like a princess who doesn't need to lift a finger. You can't enjoy such luxury without paying the price, just like your mother sold you to protect her son, so will your father, instead of letting you live like a princess. Do you think he'll send you to the battlefield? Not even your father can tell the emperor to go to war as he pleases, especially a war of aggression. Your father has opposed everything. However, your father has a daughter. Good news for the emperor, it will be easy to threaten him with you. Do you want to become your father's weakness, making him unable to say anything in front of the emperor? Go kill innocent people, and that's okay. Lilith thought to herself. That won't happen, as long as I'm not in the top 3 of the class obligated to go to the military. I've prepared countermeasures. I'm curious about Oscar's intention to help. Isn't he really the #1 mischievous character? From the way he speaks, it seems like he doesn't like the emperor. Then why in the original? Even though father asked him to help with the revolution, he stubbornly refused. When the rebels arrived at the palace, surprisingly, next to the emperor was the tower master, Oscar. Oscar just watched the emperor's death. The reason why Oscar did that. It was after I appeared as the final villain, maybe. Cheser tried to kill me instead of my panicking father, and Oscar was the one who blocked Cheser at that time. Oscar, who had never used his own power, strangely coughed up blood and fought Cheser in the end. I thought he was my enemy because I sided with the villain in the confrontation. So why did he help me, and just watch the emperor's death? At this time, Oscar reminded, relax your face, you'll get wrinkles. Lilith sighed, phew, it's so hard to understand. Oscar wondered, what's hard? Lilith hinted, the tower master. I can't understand what he's thinking. Oscar pursed his lips, trying to hold back a laugh. Then, he couldn't help but burst out laughing. Lilith wondered, why are you so nice to me? Does he have a thing for me? Is he the type to blush a little, or something? She was startled to find, is he actually blushing a little? At this time, Oscar shrugged and said, I love geniuses. Lilith realized with slight annoyance, he's teasing everyone. At this time, Oscar called her, hey. They are fighting. Huh? Lilith looked out the window in surprise. Cheser and Leon. The two of them are grabbing each other's heads and fighting. Lilith ran down in a panic. I have to go there. Oscar's smile disappeared as he looked down coldly. A faint smile quickly reappeared. The age gap is quite interesting. His smile also softened when he saw Lilith. She's mature inside and good at acting, indeed. At this time, Lilith came running over and yelled, Stop it. What do you think you're doing? Get out. Let him go. Leon, enraged, let go of Cheser. Lilith worriedly approached Cheser and asked, Are you okay? She thought to herself, the wounds will be hard to heal. I promised I wouldn't let anyone hit you. But now. She angrily asked Leon, Why did you hit him? Why? Say something. Why did you hit him? Leon replied, Don't be friends with him. I told you not to. Because he's a bad person. Lilith was surprised, What do you mean? Leon excitedly replied, He stopped mid-sentence. Then he said to Lilith with a puzzled look, Anyway, listen to me. Don't play with this thug. I don't like being rude about the commoner topic either. Lilith was surprised. What are you talking about? She thought to herself, Am I hearing this right? Leon talked about commoners, really? Even if it's someone who looks down on Cheser, it shouldn't be Leon. Though he's flashy on the outside. Isn't he a great older brother who scolded the people cursing Cheser behind his back? Why is this happening? What's wrong? Where did everything go wrong? Is it because I saved Cheser a little earlier? No, it can't be. At this time, she spoke, Am I not a commoner? Leon asked back in surprise, What? Lilith replied, I think I was born and lived as a commoner until now. If I wasn't father's daughter, you wouldn't even talk to me. Leon hurriedly explained, Hey, that's not it. Lilith continued, I also had commoner friends when I lived in Jenin. Aunt Susan and Uncle Joe are also commoners. Everyone was kind and I still miss them. I won't make friends just because they are nobles. Cheser is my friend. So, don't hit or look down on him. Leon trembled with anger, You're closer to him than me. You like him more than me. Lilith thought to herself, That's right, Leon is still immature. I want him to understand, but I can't order him to do that. She turned away sulkily, I liked you, but now I'm not so sure. Because I hate violent people the most in the world. Leon gritted his teeth, trembling. Then he turned around and walked away sullenly. At this time, Lilith hurriedly checked on Cheser, Are you all right? Does it hurt? Cheser brushed off his clothes and replied, I'm fine. Lilith sadly lowered her head, I'm sorry. This happened as soon as I brought you here. I promised I wouldn't let anyone look down on you. Cheser said in a low voice, Why are you apologizing to me? He did the right thing. I think he misunderstood my words. Lilith asked in surprise, What do you mean? Cheser replied, He came to me and asked if I was your real friend, and I said no. Lilith wondered, So what did you say? Cheser scratched his head, I said I was a toy. I thought if I said I was your friend, he would hate me. If not a friend, I just said I was a toy. I guess he understood my words the opposite way. A toy. Not a friend, but a toy. I was going to explain, but he didn't give me a chance. Lilith's eyes widened, Is that how it happened? Cheser was puzzled, You said something strange, right? I'm sorry. Lilith held her head in panic, No, I'm the one at fault. Okay. Promise. Cheser nodded, Okay. When Lilith arrived at Leon's room, it was very noisy inside. She opened the door and called softly, Brother? Their mother said, "You two should talk. I'll go out now." At this time, Lilith approached and called gently, "Brother." Leon asked with his arms crossed, "What?" Lilith said, "I heard the reason why you hit Cheshire. You were angry because Cheshire called me a toy, right?" Leon replied angrily, "Exactly. That kid is horrible. Who calls someone a toy like that?" Lilith explained, "You're mistaken. Cheshire said he was my toy, not that I was his toy." Leon was surprised. "What?" Lilith sighed, "Actually, I was the one who called Cheshire a toy. Of course, it was just a joke. I shouldn't have joked about that. Anyway, he said that because he thought calling himself my friend might make you hate him." Leon frowned, "That's ridiculous. Why would I hate him?" Lilith replied, "Isn't it because you don't like him? You even glared at him yesterday." Leon hurriedly said, "It's not that I don't like him. Maybe it's because you're closer to him." Lilith was extremely surprised. "What?" Leon said shyly, "If you bring him home and say you want to live with him, that means you really like him, right? I was trying to get closer to you, but then he suddenly appeared. I was angry because it seemed like you liked him more than me." Lilith's eyes widened. "I never thought of that. I assumed he didn't like him because he was just a commoner. So, he was jealous." She approached and said, "Brother, Cheshire is my friend, but you are my family. Look at me, okay? I always thought father was my only family. That's why, when I lived in Xenon, I envied kids with siblings. And then, when I came here, I got a brother, right? You're also very cool and handsome. Oh, and you're good at catching spiders and kind too. Lately I've been feeling very happy. I used to think having father was enough, but it's so wonderful to have brothers to play with. You are family, always by my side every day. Even if I have many friends in the future, you will always be the most important person to me." Leon asked happily, "Really?" Lilith nodded, "Yeah, really. Let's play together a lot and eat delicious food later." Leon replied cheerfully, "Sure." He asked again, "But is he better, or am I better?" Lilith replied without hesitation, "Of course, you." Leon pressed his advantage, then, "Is Theo better, or am I better?" Lilith cleverly replied, "You're better. Uncle, or you." Lilith hesitated, That's a bit difficult." Leon burst out laughing, "I understand. I'll pass this time, father." The next day, Leon sat on a chair and said arrogantly, "Hey, I'm sorry for hitting you yesterday. I misunderstood you. Violence isn't good anyway, so I apologize. It's not Lilith making me say this, I mean it." Cheshire replied, "It's okay. I said something weird anyway." Leon nodded, "All right. Let's talk normally. You forgive me, right?" Cheshire nodded, "Yeah." Theo, on the bed, said with a smile, "Leon's way of talking is a bit strange, but he's not a bad kid. Please understand. You said your name is Cheshire, right? I'm Theo. Make yourself comfortable. Although this isn't my house." Cheshire thought to himself, "Is he hurting anywhere?" At this time, Leon spoke up, "Hey, if you're going to live here from now on, you'll need to adjust the ranking a bit." Cheshire was surprised, "Ranking?" Leon said smugly, "Lilith said she likes me more than you." Cheshire froze, "What?" Leon laughed loudly with satisfaction, "Look at your face, full of defeat. And she said she likes me more than Theo, too." "Yeah, really? If you don't believe me, you can ask Lilith. Even Uncle can't win, how can you? Consider me an exception. So, I'm number one. No objections, okay. The person Lilith loves the most." Cheshire stared blankly, "That's the ranking." Theo, on the bed, spoke up, "Hey, Leon. Wait a minute. So, between you and Cheshire, who does she like more?" Leon laughed and replied, "That's not what you're asking. Probably third, right?" "Ha ha." At this time, Cheshire spoke up, "I'll take third place." Theo was surprised, "Huh? You're giving in? How kind. Leon asked, what are you guys talking about, idiot? That's for Lilith to decide. Theo was curious, what's Lilith doing now? Leon replied, probably listening to a lecture. Why? Do you want to ask? Are you confident you'll beat me? Theo tried to get out of bed, but felt dizzy. Leon worried, hey, Theo, are you all right? Theo said shakily, no, then kept panting. Ace, is it happening again? Leon shouted, wait, I'll call a servant. Cheshire also realized, his health doesn't seem very good. Theo experienced terrible pain. Unable to breathe, he fell to the floor. Cheshire was worried and didn't know what to do. He rushed to hold Theo's hands, preventing him from hurting himself.